streamed Thursday. It's not that long ago. 2 days. That's alright and acceptable for a non-everyday streamer, right? A non-full-time streamer. I'm just a streamer for fun, part-time on the side. Also, a good thing is, my beard ain't that seeable on camera. Oh, no, it kinda is. See, I have no clue what I'm doing with it today. It's getting too long, too unruly, and when I try to push it inward into a nice form, it ain't working, so I was like, what about pulling it out and curling it up at the end? It's more seeable on the right side, I think, than on the left. Left might be. Well, depends on who's right and left, I suppose. This is my right, this is my left, but it's the other way around for you all. Yeah, fair enough. Ooh, what you look at now? Discord buttons are really quick today. Well, let me just keep on talking about my mess of a beard then real quick. It's getting too long, too unruly. My head hair as well. It's getting messy. I at the very least did shave a bit under here since it was getting out of hand there as well. But I normally don't really trim or touch my beard. Just a slight bit of grooming, but not much of any trimming or getting it down to more normal size. I usually just let the barber take care of that. But those are currently closed till lockdowns are over. Which will be a bit actually. I don't know what the current state is on the lockdowns. When are we? Alright. Hello JD, hope you're doing well. Look at that, it's actually 2-month batch. I've seen it around a bit already, but you know, the 1 month subs, they just get the plebby board of wood. But a 2-month subs, there you go, a proper shield for you. Wait, let me see it all. Lockdown is getting extended, but till when? Oh, these are currently just plans till early February. Wait, early? I don't know, Barber may be opening up back soon then. I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that. Because when the barbers open back up after the lockdown, yeah, probably should go. I kinda wanna as well. Hello Alarmisk, hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a nice and fantastic weekend so far. Man, my week's been flying by, but you kinda get that when you're being busy and not much chilling in between, or you know, your week just goes by fast if you're... See, it's like one main thing I feel that makes time not go too fast, and that's when you don't know what to do. I haven't had that in a while. Well, except for not knowing what to do because there's just so much to do, but that's a different knowing what to do. Anyhow, alright. Hello, Miss. Hello, JD. Hope you're all doing well. Oh, right. Twitter notifications. Some Twitter bot followed me. Means I'm finally getting big. I think maybe. That's it. Maybe. Who knows? I'll take the extra number though. We're at 38. That's a nice amount of followers. I mean, that is for me. Let me see. The land that time forgot. No forward, no intro. Just diving right in. Well, I just remembered. I heated up water, but I never made tea. Yeah, that's alright. We'll just do with water then today. Or maybe I'll heat the water back up once I get back downstairs in a break in an hour or two. Anyhow, the land that time forgot by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Interesting name. Not sure if that's just a pen name or not, but an interesting name nonetheless. And well, on this side it's split up in 3 parts, but I'm pretty sure there was actually 3 different books. The land that time forgot, and the people that time forgot, and out of time's abyss. I'm gonna see if I can finish part 1 today, basically, I think. Hello there, Viv, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. Also, Viv, go back to Ali's stream. She's more entertaining, go back to her. What are you doing here, right? Same to Misk and JD, to be fair, but although, to be fair, me being a very boring individual, it's kind of positive for ASMR, right? If people are getting bored, they might be getting more sleepy, and it might be a bit of a positive. I'm taking it as a compliment. Hold on, get a quick ban and there we go. Wait, getting a quick ban in, but I don't see anything. No, you're quite right. Not in my chat. Oh, alright. Hope you're all having a great weekend so far. And alright. The land that time forgot. Bowen J. Tyler's manuscript, chapter 1. It must have been a little after 3 o'clock in the afternoon that it happened. The afternoon on June 3rd, 1916. It seems incredible that all that I have passed through, all those weird and terrifying experiences, should have been encompassed within so short a span as 3 brief months. Rather might I have experienced a cosmic cycle with all its changes and evolutions, for that which I have seen with my own eyes in this brief interval of time, things that no other mortal eye had seen before, glimpses of a world past, a world dead, a world so long dead that even in the lowest Cambrian stream no trace of it remains, fused with the melting inner crust, that's passed away forever beyond the ken of man, other than in that lost pocket of the earth, whither fate has borne me, and where my doom is sealed. I am here, and here I must remain. So the book did have a little bit of an intro, that was it. That's a nice little intro though. That's very bit fake but also grasping. I like it. Hello, Jerry. Don't you have places to mod, Jerry? Is it sleepy time, Viv? Well then, do watch me over Ali in that case, since I'm not entertaining and interacting. Stop interacting with Ali. Be here, get bored here, get bored to sleep, and sleep well. See, I'd almost mod JD just for a meme of it, but he'd probably hate me for it. There's no more Revel 5th. I just broke into stream elements, and at least stream elements and that, and I turned off the Revels. Just go to sleep. Alright. After reading this far, my interest, which already had been stimulated by the finding of the manuscript, was approaching the boiling point. I had come to Greenland for the summer, on the advice of my physician. I was slowly being bored to extinction, as I had thoughtlessly neglected to bring sufficient reading matter. Oh, it's not too late, Viv. Alright, you have some time to sleep then. Back over to Alice you go then. I'm from the Netherlands, Angela, and the law there, by the way. Yeah, it's usually around ASMR. Unless you're talking about me, and then yeah, sure, my rambling isn't much of ASMR either. That is true as well. Being an indifferent fisherman, my enthusiasm for his former sport soon waned. Yet, in the absence of other forms of recreation, I was now risking my life in an entirely inadequate board of Cape Farewell at the southernmost extremity of Greenland. Oh no, crazy, that's all perspective. That fire is like miles behind me. It's all a matter of perspective. Playing camera tricks. Oh, and thank you for the follow, Lost Ghost. Hope you're doing well. Nice to see you, Crazy. Hope you're doing well as well. Hope work ain't been too busy. Well, sounds like it's time for sleep then. Unless you got stuff early in the morning and tough choices there. Also so interesting. Cape Farewell apparently is a little place at the southernmost coast of Greenland. Never known much about Greenland, to be honest. I love Iceland and I've gone there a couple of times and I want to go back there even more. But Greenland I've never seen actually. Maybe sometime as well. Sounds like a good idea. Greenland as a descriptive appellation. This is sorry joke, but my story has nothing to do with Greenland, nothing to do with me. So I shall get through with the one and the other as rapidly as possible. The inadequate boat finally arrived at a precarious landing, the natives waist deep in the surf, assisting. I was carried ashore, and while the evening meal was being prepared, I wandered to and fro along the rocky, shattered shore. Bits of surf-harried beach clove the worn granite, or whatever the rocks at Cape Farewell may be composed of, and as I followed the ebbing tide down one of these soft stretches, I saw the thing. Were one to bump into a Bengal tiger in the ravine behind the Bimini bars, one could be no more surprised than was I to see a perfectly good quart thermal bottle running and twisting in the surf of Cape Farewell at the southern extremity of Greenland. I rescued it, but I was soaked above the knees doing it, and then I sat down in the sand and opened it, and in the long twilight I read the manuscript, neatly written and tidily forward, which was its contents. You have read the opening paragraph, and if you are an imaginative idiot like myself, you will want to read the rest of it. So I shall give it to you here, omitting quotation marks, which are difficult of remembrance. In 2 minutes you will forget me. Interesting little opening. Do enjoy when a book opens like that. Alright. My home is in Santa Monica. I am, or was, junior member of my father's firm. We are shipbuilders. Over years we have specialised in submarines, which we have built for Germany, England, France and the United States. I know a sub as a mother knows her baby's face, and I've commanded a score. Ellie, what are you doing? I thought you'd be streaming a while longer. Well, hello Harry, and welcome Raiders. Hope you're all doing well. And thank you so much, Ellie. What are you doing? Hope you're all having a great and amazing weekend so far. Wait, maybe I should fix up my beard. Just don't look at it. Don't. I was being ridiculous with my beard earlier and I was like, I'll just leave it, I don't care. Yeah. I mean, I don't see it too well, I think, but I was like, just curl it out a bit at the end. Just like that, just curl it up a bit. It looks absolutely ridiculous. Oh, and thank you for the host, Kirby, and hello there. And hello, Chris. And thank you for the follow. And don't you worry, Twitch does that sometimes. Yeah, now everyone is looking at you. That was not a good idea, was it? Oh well. I'll bore him to sleep soon enough. We'll get there in a bit. Yeah, I have no clue what I need to... These lockdowns need to end so the barbers can reopen and I can get this mess of a beard fixed up again. Oh, sorry to hear that, Chris. I don't know what I've been doing. Hold on. Tractors outside and all. Twitch be doing some weird things sometimes, Chris. It happens. And also, I merely just got through the intro of this book. Maybe I should... Yeah, instead of giving a bit of a recap, let me just restart from the beginning. Hey, alright Ellie, have a nice sleep, sleep well. Hope I bore you to sleep soon enough. And enjoy the hike. Yeah, sounds good, Chris. Sleep well as well. To all the American idols, or Canadian idols as well. Have a great sleep, and see you later. But today I was gonna go read The Land That Time Forgot by Edgar Rice Burroughs. So let me just jump back in at the start of the first part, because I wasn't that far in. Barely the first couple of paragraphs behind. Part 1, The Land That Time Forgot, Bowen J. Tyler Manuscripts. Chapter 1, It must have been a little after 3 o'clock in the afternoon that it happened. The afternoon of June 3rd, 1916. It seems incredible that all that I have passed through, all those weird and terrifying experiences, should have been encompassed within so short a span as 3 brief months. Rather might I have experienced a cosmic cycle with all its changes and evolutions for that which I have seen with my own eyes in this brief interval of time. Things that no other mortal eye had seen before, glimpses of a world past, a world dead, a world so long dead that even in the lowest Cambrian stream no trace of it remains. Fused with the melting inner crust that has passed forever beyond the ken of men, other than in that lost pocket of the earth where her fate has borne me, and where my doom is sealed. I am here, and here I must remain. And hello, shuddering rock, hope you're doing well as well. After reading this far, my interest, which had already been stimulated by the finding of the manuscript, was approaching the boiling point. I had come to Greenland for the summer on the advice of my physician, and was slowly being bored to extinction, as I had thoughtlessly neglected to bring sufficient reading matter. Being an indifferent fisherman, my enthusiasm for this form of sport soon waned, yet in the absence of other forms of recreation, I was now risking my life in an entirely inadequate boat of Cape Farewell at the southernmost extremity of Greenland. Greenland, as a descriptive appellation, 'tis a sorry joke, but my story has nothing to do with Greenland, nothing to do with me, so I shall get through with the one and the other as rapidly as possible. And hello, Blue Cup, thank you for the follow, you're doing well. The inadequate boat finally arrived at a precarious landing, the natives waist deep in the surf assisting. I was carried ashore, and while the evening meal was being prepared, I wandered to and fro along the rocky, shattered shore. Bits of surf-varied beach, clove the worn granite, or whatever the rocks of Cape Farewell may be composed of. And as I followed the ebbing tide down one of those soft stretches, I saw the thing where one to bump into a Bengal tiger in a ravine behind the Bimini Baths, one could be no more surprised than was I to see a perfectly good quart thermos bottle turning and twisting in the surf of Cape Farewell at the southern extremity of Greenland. I rescued it, but I was soaked above the knees doing it, and then I sat down in the sand and opened it, and in the long twilight I read the manuscript, neatly written and tightly forward with what's its contents. And you have read the opening paragraph, and if you are an imaginative idiot like myself, you will want to read the rest of it, so I shall give it to you here, omitting quotation marks which are difficult of remembrance. In 2 minutes you will forget me. And well, I'm not much of an imaginative idiot, but I'm an idiot, so I think that counts enough, right? And I do like that little opening. I love it when a story opens with a bit of an intro like that. But alright. My home is in Santa Monica. I am, or was, junior member of my father's firm. We're shipbuilders, recent years we have specialised on submarines, which we have built for Germany, England, France and the United States. I know a sub as a mother knows her baby's face, and have commanded a score at them on their trial runs. Yet my inclinations were all toward aviation. I graduated under Curtis, and after a long siege with my father, obtained his permission to try for a Lafayette escadrille. As a stepping stone I obtained an appointment in the American Ambulance Service, and was on my way to France when 3 shrill whistles altered, in as many seconds, my entire scheme of life. I was sitting on deck with some of the fellows who were going into the American Ambulance Service with me, my Ardil Crown Prince Nobler asleep at my feet, when the first blast of the whistle shattered the peace and security of the ship. Ever since entering the U-boat zone, we had been on the lookout for periscopes, and children that we were bemoaning the unkind fate that was to see us sail into France on the morrow without a glimpse at the dreaded marauders. We were young, we craved thrills, and God knows we got them that day. Yet by comparison with that through which I have since passed, they were as tame as a Punch and Judy show. I shall never forget the ashy faces of the passengers as they stampeded for their lifebelts, though there was no panic. Nobs arose with a low growl. I arose also, and over the ship's side I saw not 200 yards distant the periscope of a submarine. While racing toward the liner, the wake of torpedo was distinctly visible. We were aboard an American ship, which of course was not armed. We were entirely defenceless, yet without warning. We were being torpedoed. I stood rigid, spellbound, watching the wide wake of the torpedo. It struck us on the starboard side almost amidships. The vessel rocked us through the sea beneath. It had been uptorn by a mighty volcano. We were thrown to the decks, bruised and stunned, and then above the ship, carrying with it fragments of steel and wood and dismembered human bodies, rose a column of water hundreds of feet into the air. The silence which followed the detonation of the exploding torpedo was almost equally horrifying. It lasted for perhaps 2 seconds, to be followed by the screams and moans of the wounded, the cursing at the men and the hoarse commands of the ship's officers. They were splendid, they and their crew. Never before had I been so proud of my nationality as I was that moment. In all the chaos which followed the torpedoing of the liner, no officer or member of the crew lost his head or showed in the slightest any degree of panic or fear. While we were attempting to lower boats, the submarine emerged and trained guns on us. The officer in command ordered us to lower our flag, but this the captain of the liner refused to do. The ship was listing frightfully to starboard, rendering the port boats useless. While half the starboard boats had been demolished by the explosion, even while the passengers were crowding the starboard rail and scrambling into the few boats left to us, the submarine commenced shelling the ship. I saw one shell burst in a group of women and children, and I turned my head and covered my eyes. When I looked again, to horror was added chagrin, For with the emerging on a U-boat, I had recognized her as a product of her own shipyard. I knew her to a rivet. I had superintended her construction. I had sat in that very conning tower and directed the efforts of the sweating crew below when first her prow clove the sunny summer waters of the Pacific. And now this creature of my brain and hand had turned Frankenstein, bent and bump pursuing me to my death. Book is starting quite intense, but I'm liking it. It's very suspenseful. A good suspense, I feel. I may be boring, but the story I'm reading is not. Good to keep things varied a bit. A second shell exploded upon the deck. One of the lifeboats, frightfully overcrowded, swung at a dangerous angle from its davits. A fragment of the shell shattered the bow tackle, and I saw the women and children and the men vomit into the sea beneath, while the boat dangled, starting up for a moment from its single davit, and at last, with increasing momentum, dived into the midst of the struggling victims, screaming upon the fear and the waters. Now I saw men spring to the rail and leap into the ocean. The deck was tilting to an impossible angle. Nobbs braced himself with all 4 feet to keep from slipping into the scuppers, and looked up into my face with a questioning whine. I stooped and stroked his head. "Come on, boy," I cried, and running to the side of the ship, dived head foremost over the rail. When I came up, the first thing I saw was Nobbs swimming about in a bewildered sort of way a few yards from me. At sight of me, his ears went flat, and his lips parted in a characteristic grin. The submarine was withdrawing toward the north, but all the time it was shelling the open boats, 3 of them, lowered to the gunwales with survivors. Fortunately, the small boats presented a rather poor target, which, combined with the bad marksmanship of the Germans, preserved their occupants from harm. And after a few minutes, a blotch of smoke appeared upon the eastern horizon, and the U-boat submerged and disappeared. All the time the lifeboats had been pulling away from the danger of the sinking liner, and now, though I yelled at the top of my lungs, they either did not hear my appeals for help, or else did not dare return to succor me. Nobbs and I had gained some little distance from the ship when it rolled completely over and sank. We were caught in suction only enough to be drawn backward a few yards, neither of us being carried beneath the surface. I glanced hurriedly about for something to which to cling. My eyes were directed toward the point at which the liner had disappeared, when there came from the depths of the ocean the muffled reverberation of an explosion, and almost simultaneously a geyser of water in which were shattered lifeboats, human bodies, steam, coal, oil, and the flotsam of a liner's deck leaped high above the surface of the sea. A watery column momentarily marking the grave of another ship in this greatest cemetery of the seas. When the turbulent waters had somewhat subsided and the sea had ceased to spew up wreckage, I ventured to swim back in search of something substantial enough to support my weight into the Nobbs as well. I had gotten well over the area of the wreck One at a half dozen yards ahead of me, a lifeboat shot bow foremost out of the ocean, almost its entire length to flop down upon its keel with a mighty splash. It must have been carried far below, held to its mothership by a single rope, which finally parted to the enormous strain put upon it. In no other way can I account for its having leaped so far out of the water. A beneficent circumstance to which I doubtless owe my life, and that of another far dearer to me than my own. I say beneficent circumstance, even in the face of the fact that a fate far more hideous confronts us than that which we escaped that day, for because of that circumstance I have met her whom otherwise I never should have known. I have met and loved her. At least, I have had great happiness in life, nor can Caspec with all their horrors expunge that which has been. So, for 1,000th time, I thank the strange fate which sent the lifeboat hurtling upward from the green pit of destruction to which it had been dragged, sent it far up above the surface, emptying its water as it rose above the seas, and dropping it upon the surface of the sea, buoyant and safe. Let me pour out and drink some more water real quick. Hope you're all enjoying the story thus far. Hope it's at least slightly interesting. Or it's just relaxing and flying by in one ear and out the other. That's all right. It did not take me long to clamber over its side and drag Nobs into a comparative safety, and then I glanced around upon the scene of death and desolation which surrounded us. The sea was littered with wreckage, among which floated the pitiful forms of women and children buoyed up by their useless lifebelts. Some were torn and mangled, others lay rolling quietly to the motion of the sea, their countenances composed and peaceful. Others were set in hideous lines of agony or horror. Close to the boat's side floated the figure of a girl. Her face was turned upward, held above the surface by a lifebelt, and was framed in a floating mass of dark and waving hair. She was very beautiful. I'd never looked upon such perfect features, such a defined moulding which was at the same time human, intensely human. It was a face filled with character and strength and femininity, the face of one who was created to love and to be loved. The cheeks were flushed to the hue of life and health and vitality, and yet she lay there upon the bosom of the sea. That I felt something rise in my throat as I looked down upon that radiant vision, and I swore that I should live to avenge her murder. I'm really impressed by the writing in that paragraph. That was very nice. Yeah, thank you, Viv. Glad it's hopefully working. And then I let my eyes drop once more to the face upon the water, and what I saw nearly tumbled me backward into the sea, for the eyes in the dead face had opened, the lips had parted, and one hand was raised toward me in a mute appeal for succor. She lived, she was not dead. I leaned over the boat's side and drew her quickly into the comparative safety which God had given me. I removed her lifebelt and my soggy coat, and made a pillow for her head. I chafed her hands and arms and feet. I worked over her for an hour, and at last I was rewarded by a deep sigh, and again those great eyes opened and looked into mine. Hey, it's you. You're finally awake. Wait, no, wrong script. Also, I didn't quite know what kind of book this would be. It's getting very kind of romantic. Well, it is Valentine's month after all. At that I was all embarrassment. I've never been a ladies' man. At Leland Stanford I was the butt of the class because of my hopeless imbecility in the presence of a pretty girl, but the man liked me nevertheless. I was rubbing one of her hands when she opened her eyes, and I dropped it as though it were a red-hot rivet. Those eyes took me in slowly, from head to foot. Then they wandered slowly around the horizon, marked by the rising and falling gunwales of the lifeboat. They looked at Nob and softened, and then came back to me filled with questioning. And let me put my phone on silent. Oh. A red warning for snow and ice. Well, I guess they had to upgrade the warnings since I've been getting yellow and orange warnings for snow and ice, but not seen a single bit, to be honest. Yeah, that's a good idea, isn't it? I usually kind of have it on silent anyways, but sometimes put it off since I want some notifications to be known. Her eyes then shifted over towards Nobs and softened, and then came back to me, filled with questioning. I stammered, moving away and stumbling over her next word. The vision smiled wanly. Aye, sir, she replied faintly, and her kind of lips drooped and her long lashes swept the firm, fair texture of her skin. I hope that you are feeling better, I finally managed to say. Do you know, she said after a moment of silence, I've been awake for a long time, but I did not dare open my eyes. I thought I must be dead, and I was afraid to look, for fear that I should see nothing but blackness about me. I'm afraid to die. Tell me what happened after the ship went down. I remember all that happened before, oh, but I wish that I might forget it. A sob broke her voice. The beasts, she went on after a moment. And to think that I was to have married one of them, a lieutenant in the German Navy. Presently she resumed as though she had not ceased speaking. I went down and down and down. I thought I should never cease to think. I felt no particular distress until I suddenly started upward at ever-increasing velocity. Then my lungs seemed about to burst, and I must have lost consciousness, for I remember nothing more until I opened my eyes, after listening to a torrent of invective against Germany and Germans. Tell me please all that happened after the ship sank. I told her then, as well as I could, all that I had seen. The submarine shelling the open boats and all the rest of it. She thought it marvellous that we should have been spared in so providential a manner. I had a pretty speech upon my tongue's end, but lacked the nerve to deliver it. Nobs had come over and nosed his muzzle into her lap, and she stroked his ugly face. And at last she leaned over and put her cheek against his forehead. I have always admired Nobs, but it was the first time that it had ever occurred to me that I might wish to be Nobs. I wondered how he would take it, for he is as unused to women as I, but he took to it as a duck takes to water. What I lack of being a ladies' man, Nobs certainly makes up for as a ladies' dog. The old scalawag just closed his eyes and put on one of the softest sugar wouldn't melt in my mouth expressions you ever saw, and stood there taking it and asking for more. It made me jealous. And hello there, Dexter. Thank you for the follow. Hope you're doing well. And I must say, maybe it's just me, but I'm loving the style of writing. It's so lovely. I mean, it's kind of the first time I think that I'm reading a bit more romantic of a novel. At least this part is romantic. At least I don't know about the whole book. But this a good start. Good start. You seem fond of dogs, I said. I'm fond of this dog, she replied. Whether she meant anything personal in that reply, I did not know, but I took it as personal and it made me feel mighty good. As we drifted about upon that vast expanse of loneliness, it is not strange that we should quickly become well acquainted. Constantly we scanned the horizon for signs of smoke, venturing guesses as to our chances of rescue. But darkness settled, and a black night enveloped us without ever the sight of a speck upon the waters. We were thirsty, hungry, uncomfortable and cold. Our wet garments had dried but little, and I knew that the girl must be in grave danger from the exposure to a night of cold and wet upon the water in an open boat, without sufficient clothing and no food. I had managed to boil all the water out of the boat with cupped hands, ending by mopping the balance up with my handkerchief. A slow and back-breaking procedure, that I had made a comparatively dry place for a girl to lie down low in the bottom of the boat, where the sides would protect her from the night wind, and when at last she did so, almost overcome as she was by weakness and fatigue, I threw my wet coat over her further to thwart the chill, but it was of no avail as I sat watching her, the moonlight marking out the graceful curves of her slender young body. I saw her shiver. Also, well, cold nights, you know what that means. Body is the best kind of heat if you don't have anything else. You see, isn't there something I can do? I asked. I can't lie there chill through all night. Can't you suggest something? She shook her head. We must grin and bear it, she replied for a moment. Nobler came and lay down on the thwart beside me, his back against my leg, and I sat staring in dumb misery at the girl, knowing in my heart of hearts that she might die before morning came, for what with the shock and exposure, she had already gone through enough to kill almost any woman. And as I gazed down at her so small and delicate and helpless, okay, reel it in a bit there, hold on. There was born slowly within my breast a new emotion. It had never been there before, now it will never cease to be there. It made me almost frantic in my desire to find some way to keep warm the cooling lifeblood in her veins. I was cold myself, though I had almost forgotten it until Numbler moved, and I felt a new sensation of cold along my leg, against which he had lain, and suddenly I realized that in that one spot I had been warm. Like a great light came the understanding of a means to warm the girl. Immediately I knelt beside her to put my scheme into practice when suddenly I was overwhelmed with embarrassment. Would she permit it, even if I could muster the courage to suggest it? Then I saw her frame convulse shudderingly, her muscles reacting to her rapidly lowering temperature, and casting prudery to the wind, I threw myself down beside her and took her in my arms, pressing her body close to mine. She drew away suddenly, voicing a little cry of fright, and tries to push me from her. "Forgive me," I managed to stammer. This is the only way. You will die of exposure if you are not warmed, and Nobs and I are the only means we can command for furnishing warmth. And I held her tightly while I caught Nobs and bade him lie down on her back. The girl didn't struggle any more when she learned my purpose, but she gave 2 or 3 little gasps and then began to cry softly, burying her face on my arm, and thus she fell asleep. Quite loved that part of the book. That was lovely. I'm loving the writing style so far. I'm just in between chapters right now, by the way. Should maybe keep my commentary for in between chapters. Maybe keep my commentary light anyways. Yeah. Despite maybe a slight bit of sexism in that last chapter. But unfortunately to be expected in older books, to be honest. It was lovely and it ended endearingly and nice, warming the heart, I hope. Chapter 2. Toward morning I must have dozed, though it seemed to me at the time that I had lain awake for days instead of hours. When I finally opened my eyes, 'twas daylight, and the girl's hair was in my face, and she was breathing normally. I thanked God for that. She had turned her head during the night, so that as I opened my eyes I saw her face not an inch from mine, my lips almost touching hers. 'Twas Nobbs who finally awoke her. He got up, stretched, turned around a few times and lay down again, and the girl opened her eyes and looked into mine. Hers went very wide at first, and then slowly comprehension came to her, and she smiled. I don't know. I just find it very cute reading this. Although, many of you may know I'm very awkward as well, so it's a very realistic situation for me if well, at least, kind of the context of the situation. Or without the context, more the grit of the situation. "You have been very good to me," she said as I helped her to rise, though if the truth were known I was more in need of assistance than she. The circulation all along my left side seeming to be paralyzed entirely. "You have been very, very good to me." That was the only mention she ever made of it. Yet I know that she was thankful, and that only her reserve prevented her from referring to what, to say the least, was an embarrassing situation, however unavoidable. Shortly after daylight we saw smoke apparently coming straight towards us, and after a time we made out the squat lines of a tug. one of those fearless exponents of England's supremacy of the sea that tows sailing ships into French and English ports. I stood up on a thwart and waved my soggy coat above my head. Nob stood upon another and barked. The girl sat at my feet, straining her eyes toward the deck of the oncoming boat. "They see us, I think they see us," she said at last. "There is a man answering your signal." She was right. A lump came into my throat, for her sake rather than for mine. She was saved, and none too soon. She could not have lived through another night upon the Channel. She might not have lived through the coming day. The tug came close beside us, and the man on deck threw us a rope. Willing hands dragged us to the deck. Nob scrambling nimbly aboard without assistance. The rough men were gentle as mothers with a girl, plying us both with questions they hustled her to the captain's cabin and me to the boiler room. They told the girl to take off her wet clothes and throw them outside the door, that they might be dried, and then to slip into the captain's bunk and get warm. They didn't have to tell me to strip after I once got into the warmth of the boiler room. In a jiffy me clothes hung about where they might dry most quickly, and I myself was absorbing through every pore the welcome heat of the stifling compartment. They brought us hot soup and coffee, and then those who were not on duty sat around and helped me damn the Kaiser and his brood. Also, barely 2 chapters in and they're already stripping down. That's moving a bit fast there, book, but alright. And soon as our clothes were dry, they bade us don them, as the chances were almost more than fair in those waters that we should run into trouble with the enemy, as I was only too well aware. What with the warmth and the feeling of safety for a girl, and the knowledge that a little rest and food would quickly overcome the effects of her experiences of the past dismal hours, I was feeling more content than I had experienced since those 3 whistle blasts had shattered a piece of my world the previous afternoon. But peace upon the Channel has been but a transitory thing since August 1914. It proved itself such that morning, for I had scarce gotten into my dry clothes and taken the girl's apparel to the cabin when an order was shouted down into the engine room for full speed ahead. At an instant later I heard the dull boom of a gun. In a moment I was upon deck to see an enemy submarine about 200 yards off her port bow. She had signalled us to stop and our skipper had ignored the order, but now she had her gun trained on us, and the second shot grazed the cabin, warning the belligerent tug captain that it was time to obey. Once again an order went down to the engine room, and the tug reduced speed. The U-boat ceased firing and ordered the tug to come about and approach. Our momentum had carried us a little beyond the enemy craft, but we were turning now on the arc of a circle that would bring us alongside her. As I stood watching the maneuver and wondering what was to become of us, I felt something touch my elbow and turned to see the girl standing at my side. She looked up into my face with a rueful expression. "They seem bent on our destruction," she said, "and it looks like the same boat that sunk us yesterday." "It is," I replied. "I know her well." I know her well. Sorry for that sounded weird. Left quick switches to a different effect on it. I held the signer and took her out on her first run. The girl drew back from me with a little exclamation of surprise and disappointment. I thought you were an American, she said. I had no idea you were a... Nor am I replied. Americans have been building submarines for all nations for many years. I wish, though, that we had gone bankrupt, my father and I, before ever we turned out that Frankenstein of a thing. We were approaching the U-boat at half speed now, and I could almost distinguish the features of the men upon our deck. A sailor stepped up to my side and slipped something hard and cold into my hand. I did not have to look at it to know that it was a heavy pistol. Take her and use her, was all he said. Hello there, Kenton, how do you do? Hope you're doing well. Darn. I have a slight feeling I may know what made you show up today. I know, I always get shy and blushy when, like, Fox or Ellie mentions me on the stream. I'm like, stop. There's nothing to mention, really. Our bow was pointed straight toward the U-boat now, as I heard word pass to the engine for full speed ahead. I instantly grasped the brazen effrontery of the plucky English skipper. He was going to ram 500 tons of U-boat in the face of a trained gun. I could scarce repress a cheer. At first the buckets didn't seem to grasp his intention. Evidently they thought they were witnessing an exhibition of poor seamanship, and they yelled their warnings to the tug to reduce speed and throw the helm hard to port. We were within 50 feet of them when they awakened to the intentional menace of our maneuver. Their gun crew was off its guard, but they sprang to their piece now and sent a futile shell above our heads. Nobs leaped about and barked furiously. Let him have it, commanded the tug captain, and instantly revolvers and rifles poured bullets upon the deck of the submersible. 2 of the gun crew went down, the other trained their piece at the waterline of the oncoming tug. The balance of those on deck replied to our small arms fire, directing their efforts toward the men at our wheel. I hastily pushed the girl down the companionway leading to the engine room, and then I raised my pistol and fired my first shot at the botch. What happened in the next few seconds happened so quickly that details are rather blurred in my memory. I saw the helmsman lunge forward upon the wheel, pulling the helm around so that the tug sheered off quickly from her course. And I recall realizing that all our efforts were to be in vain, because of all the men aboard feared the decree that this one should fall first to an enemy bullet. I saw the depleted gun crew and the submarine fire their piece, and I felt the shock of impact and heard a loud explosion as a shell struck and exploded in our bows. I saw and realized these things even as I was leaping into the pilot house and grasping the wheel, standing astride the dead body of the helmsman. With all my strength I threw the helm to starboard, but it was too late to effect the purpose of our skipper. The best I did was to scrape alongside the sub. I heard someone shriek an order into the engine room, and their speed quickly lessened. Then I saw what that madman of a skipper planned since his first scheme had gone wrong. With a loud yelled command he leaped to the slippery deck of the submersible, and at his heels came his hardy crew. I sprang from the pilot house and followed, not to be left out in the cold when it came to strafing the butches. From the engine room companionway came the engineer and stokers, and together we leaped after the balance of the crew, and into the hand-to-hand fight that was covering the wet deck with red blood. Beside me came Nup, silent now and grim. Germans were emerging from the open edge to take part in the battle on deck. At first the pistols cracked amidst the cursing of the men and loud commands of the commander and his junior. But presently we were too indiscriminately mixed to make it safe to use our firearms, and the battle resolved itself into a hand-to-hand struggle for possession of the deck. The sole aim of each of us was to hurl one of the opposing force into the sea. I shall never forget the hideous expression upon the face of the great Prussian with whom chance confronted me. He lowered his head and rushed at me, bellowing like a bull. With a quick sidestep and ducking low beneath his outstretched arms, I eluded him, and as he turned to come back at me, I landed a blow upon his chin, which sent him spinning toward the edge of the deck. I saw his wild endeavours to regain his equilibrium. I saw him reel drunkenly for an instant upon the brink of eternity, and then, with a loud scream, slip into the sea. At the same instant a pair of giant arms encircled me from behind and lifted me entirely off my feet. Kick and squirm as I would, I could neither turn toward my antagonist nor free myself from his maniacal grasp. Relentlessly he was rushing me toward the side of the vessel in death. There was none to stay him, for each of my companions was more than occupied by from 1 to 3 of the enemy. For an instant I was fearful of myself, and then I saw that which filled me with a far greater terror for another. My bush was bearing me toward the side of the submarine, against which the tug was still pounding. That I should be ground to death between the two was lost upon me as I saw the girl standing alone upon the tug's deck, as I saw the stern high in air and the bow rapidly settling for a final dive, as I saw death from which I could not save her clutching at the skirts of the woman I now knew all too well that I loved. I had perhaps a fraction of a second longer to live when I heard an angry growl behind us, mingled with a cry of pain and rage from the giant who carried me. Instantly he went backward to the deck, and as he did so he threw his arms outwards to save himself, freeing me. I fell heavily upon him, but was upon my feet in the instant. As I arose, I cast a single glance at my opponent. Never again would he menace me or another, for Nup's great jaws had closed upon his throat. Then I sprang toward the edge of the deck, closest to the girl upon the sinking tug. Also, in between chapters I need to look up what kind of dog Nob is. In my mind, for some reason, I wanted like a little pug or something. They said the race that it was, but I had no clue what dog race it was. I don't know what dog races that well. Jump, I cried, jump. that I held out my arms to her. Instantly, as though with implicit confidence in my ability to save her, she leaped over the side of the tuck onto the sloping, slippery side of the U-boat. I reached far over to seize her hand. At the same instant the tuck pointed its stern straight toward the sky and plunged out of sight. My hand missed the girl's by a fraction of an inch, and I saw her slip into the sea. But scarce had she touched the water when I was in after her. The sinking tug threw us far below the surface, but I had seized her the moment I struck the water, and so we went down together, and together we came up, a few yards from the U-boat. There we go, sorry. Just drew my chair closer a bit. The first thing I heard was Nobs barking furiously. Evidently it missed me and was surging. A single glance at the vessel's deck assured me that the battle was over and that we had been victorious, for I saw our survivors holding a handful of the enemy at pistol points, while one by one the rest of the crew was coming out of the craft's interior and lining up on deck with the other prisoners. Hello there, people, and thank you for a follow. Had something stuck in my throat there, sorry. But hello there. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a great week. And hope you had a great sleep, I presume. Since if I remember correctly that the chain overrates, I presume you went to sleep right after Chewy's stream. And ended up here by now. I'm doing good, I'm doing good. Thank you. And well, you may be a bit lost where we are in the story. Normally try not to recap too much. We're in the middle of battle on sea at the moment. As I swam toward the submarine with the girl, Nob's persistent barking attracted the attention of some of the tuck's crew, so as soon as we reached the side there were hands to help us aboard. I asked the girl if she was hurt, but she assured me that she was none the worse for the second wedding, nor that she seemed to suffer any from shock. I was to learn for myself that a slender and seemingly delicate creature possessed the art and courage of a warrior. As we joined our own party, I found the tuck's maid checking up our survivors. There were 10 of us left, not including the girl. Our brave skipper was missing, as were 8 others. There had been 19 of us in the attacking party, and we had accounted in one way and another during the battle for 16 Germans and had taken 9 prisoners, including the commander. His lieutenant had been killed. Not a bad day's work, said Bradley, the mate, when he had completed his role. Only losing the skipper, he added, was the worst. He was a fine man, a fine man. Olsen, who in spite of his name was Irish, and in spite of his not being Scottish, had been the tuck's engineer, was standing with Bradley and me. Yes, he agreed that a day of work were done after doing, but what are we going to be doing with it now we got it? We'll run her into the nearest English port, said Bradley, and then we'll all go ashore and get our VCs, he concluded, laughing. Are you going to run her? Queried Olsen. You can't trust these Dutchmen. Bradley scratched his head. I guess you're right, he admitted, and I don't know the first thing about a shop. I do, I assured him. I know more about this particular shop than the officer who commanded her. Both men looked at me in astonishment, and then I had to explain all over again as I had explained to the girl. Bradley and Olsen were delighted. Immediately I was put in command, and the first thing I did was to go below with Olsen, and inspect the craft thoroughly for hidden botches and damaged machinery. There were no Germans below, and everything was intact and the ship-shape working order. I then ordered all hands below except one man, who was to act as lookout. Questioning the Germans, I found that all except the commander were willing to resume their posts and aid in bringing the vessel into an English port. I believe that they were relieved at the prospect of being detained at a comfortable English prison camp for the duration of the war after the perils and privations to which they had passed. The officer, however, assured me that he would never be a party to the capture of his vessel. There was, therefore, nothing to do but put the men in irons. As we were preparing to put this decision into force, the girl ascended from the deck. It was the first time that she or a German officer had seen each other's faces since we had boarded the U-boat. I was assisting the girl down the ladder, and still retained a hold upon her arm, possibly after such support was no longer necessary. When she turned and looked squarely into the face of the German, each voiced a sudden exclamation of surprise and dismay. "Liz," he cried, and took a step toward her. The girl's eyes went wide and slowly filled with a great horror. As she shrank back, then her slender figure stiffened to the erectness of a soldier, and with chin in air and without a word, she turned her back upon the officer. "Take him away," I directed the two men who guarded him, and put him in irons. When he had gone, the girl raised her eyes to mine. He is the German of whom I spoke," she said. "He is Baron of von Schoenfurt." My German names may not be the best. I know a bit of German, but I'm gonna try. Which, in case you weren't there for that, she was set out to marry some German Navy officer, and that by coincidence will be him. I merely inclined my head. She had loved him. I wondered if in her heart of hearts she did not love him yet. Immediately I became insanely jealous. I hated Baron Frederick from Schoenfurt with such utter intensity that the emotion thrilled me with such a species of exultation. But I didn't have much chance to enjoy my hatred then, for almost immediately the lookout poked his face over the hatchway and bawled down that there was smoke on the horizon, dead ahead. Immediately I went on deck to investigate, and Bradley came with me. "If she's friendly," he said, "we'll speak her. If she's not, we'll sink her, eh, Captain?" "Yes, Lieutenant," I replied, and it was his turn to smile. We hoisted the Union Jack and remained on deck, asking Bradley to go below and assign to each member of the crew his duty, placing one Englishman with a pistol beside each German. "Half speed ahead," I commanded. More rapidly now we closed closed the distance between ourselves and the stranger, until I could plainly see the red ensign of the British Merchant Marine. My heart swelled with pride at the thought that presently admiring British stars would be congratulating us upon our notable capture, and just about then the merchant steamer must have sighted us, for she veered suddenly toward the north. At a moment later, dense volumes of smoke issued from her funnels. Then, steering a zigzag course, she fled from us as though we had been the bubonic plague. I altered the course of the submarine and set off in chase, but the steamer was faster than we, and soon left us hopelessly astern. With a rueful smile, I directed that our original course be resumed, and once again we set off toward Merry England. That was 3 months ago, and we haven't arrived yet, nor is there any likelihood that we ever shall. Hello there, Cookie. Well, the campfire is just great at telling the story beyond the twitch. Well, thank you very much, Blue Cup. Glad you enjoyed, and take care. Have a nice rest of your weekend. Let me pour out some more water real quick. Sorry about my chair creaking here. The steamer we had just sighted must have wirelessed a warning, for it wasn't half an hour before we saw more smoke on the horizon, and this time the vessel flew the white ensign of the Royal Navy and carried guns. She didn't veer to the north or anywhere else, but bore down on us rapidly. I was just preparing to signal her when a flame flashed from her bows, and an instant later the water in front of us was thrown high by the explosion of a shell. Bradley had come on deck and was standing beside me. "About 1 more of those and she'll have our range," he said. "She doesn't seem to take much stock in our Union Jack." A second shell passed over us, and then I gave the command to change our direction, at the same time directing Bradley to go below and give the order to submerge. I passed nobs down to him, and following saw to the closing and fastening of the hatch. Thank you, Cookie. And hello, and thank you for the follow, Gulio, by the way. And I don't know. I'm also trying some dumb stuff with my beer today, just something like that. I need lockdowns to end and the barber to reopen. Oh, and thank you for the follow, Combayot. Hope you're doing well. I'm sorry if I butchered that name, I'm probably dead. It seemed to me that the diving tanks never had filled so slowly. We heard a loud explosion apparently directly above us. The craft trembled to the shock which threw it all to the deck. I expected momentarily to feel the deluge of inrushing water, but none came. Instead we continued to submerge, until our manometers registered 40 feet. And then I knew that we were safe. I almost smiled. I had relieved Olsen, who had remained in the tower in my direction. Having been a member of one of the early British submarine crews, and therefore having some knowledge of the business, Bradley was at my side. He looked at me quizzically. "What the devil are we to do?" he asked. "The merchant will flee us, the war vessel will destroy us. Neither will believe our colours, or give us a chance to explain. We'll meet even worse reception if we go nosing around the British port. Mines, nets and all of it. We can't do it." "Let's try it again when this fellow has lost the scent," I urged. "There must come a ship that will believe us." And try it again we did, only to be almost rammed by a huge freighter. Later we were fired upon by a destroyer, and 2 merchantmen turned and fled at our approach. For 2 days we cruised up and down the channel, trying to tell someone who would listen that we were friends. Hold on. My cat is making a ruckus. She's being a bit of a loudmouth. Let me just have her on my lap for a bit. And try again to signal some friendly Englishmen. We did, only to be almost rammed by a huge freighter. Later we were fired upon by a destroyer, and 2 merchantmen turned and fled at our approach. Hello, the expert. Hope you're doing well. I hope so, Cookie. I hope everyone is nice and sleepy or relaxing away. For 2 days we cruised up and down the channel, trying to tell someone who would listen that we were friends, but no one would listen. After our encounter with the first warship, I'd given instructions that a wireless message be sent out explaining our predicament, but to my chagrin, I discovered that both sending and receiving instruments had disappeared. There is only one place you can go once Comfort sent word to me, and that is Kiel. You can't land anywhere else in these waters. If you wish, I will take you there, and I can promise that you will be treated well. There is another place we can go, I sent back my reply. And we will before we'll go to Germany. That place is hell. Alright, that's the end of that chapter. Let me just take a bit of a breather, a bit of a breathing break to rest my voice. Hope you're all enjoying the story so far, or enjoying the relaxing reading and having a nice day, a relaxing nap or likes. Oh, thank you, Ken. Glad to hear you're enjoying it as well. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Just trying to kind of make sure you're on this little reading break. But my cat is not gonna start meowing for attention again once he jumps off my lap. That's alright, miss. Miss. That's entirely alright. This they didn't mention it yet in the book. Well, he's kind of telling it from his first perspective. They did call it World War II, I think, right? Where it was happening, so... Yeah, they just haven't mentioned yet. The story takes place in World War II. You know what, let me do a quick recap whilst I take a bit of a break from reading. And then I'm still talking, but... whatever. I've been loving the story so far, so I actually don't mind a recap to also keep everything fresh in my head, kinda. So he was coming on a boat, our main guy was coming on a boat over, I think just towards England, I'm not entirely sure where they were headed. And they encountered a German U-boat in the waters. And well, there's an American ship. Not entirely sure what set it off, but they were instantly fired upon. And a couple of lifeboats escaped from that destruction and desolation, which was kind of what the first chapter was about. Yeah, it is the Land Before Time, but we're getting to the Land Before Time. They're not there yet. I think it has dinosaurs, but we haven't seen any yet. Soon, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, just our main guy escaped from that U-boat on a lifeboat, kinda. That party was alone with one woman he managed to save from the wreckage. And thereafter they came upon a tug, they're calling it. A certain kind of boat, I presume. I think I've heard tug of war, right? I don't know. No, just a tugboat. A big old freight boat, I think. Maybe. Is it? Is it for freight? I don't know my boats, I'm sorry. Well, it isn't really a warboat, I think. Oh, right. Tug of war is a game about the rope. See, I remember words and things, not always their meaning. Hello, Deku, thank you for the follow. And well, the tug, they finally got to rest up a bit again. And assisted Sage, thank you for the follow as well. But yeah, they got to rest up again for a bit. Once they got to the tug, the boat. And from there they encountered the same U-boat again, but it didn't instantly fire. So they had a chance to hop on over to the U-boat. And in hand-to-hand fighting the men on the tug, along with our main people. They ended up getting the upper hand and seizing the U-boat. And that was kind of where the end of the last chapter was mainly about. In that seized German U-boat, they're kind of trying to contact Englishmen, but none of them of course will believe that they're Englishmen and that they captured the U-boat. And well, apparently their communications things are down, so they just have to mention it by waving a flag on the port. Which, yeah, hasn't been going well for them so far. So now they're going to start looking at other options. Oh, we all know each other. A bit of everywhere squad there. Hello there, Sister Sage. And Deku, of course. But let me see. You didn't hear it then, Captain. Yeah, I think it was partly jokingly. She doesn't... I mean, she does come by quite often. And just lurk, I think. But, she was also her favourite ASMR streamers were. And of course, she's had Copycat and Freddy Fox and ASMR Darling, I think. I'm not sure if Darling was in there. And Ruby True, no, that one. And a couple more. And then my name as well, I don't know. It's been a while since I blushed that redly. But I wanted to see as well, what kind of dog did our main guy have? It said it's a race, I think, but where did it? Somewhere in the beginning. My Airedale. I think Airedale was the... what kind of dog is that? Oh, an Airedale Terrier. Well, that looks way cuter than the couple of things it was putting us to believe. Because this little Airedale Terrier bit a big Prussian in the neck whilst they were fighting to gain control over that U-boat. Oh, Misk, that's very nice of you. I must say, I actually don't watch. Like, there's just one big ASMR streamer I watch on Twitch, and for the rest, I watch the medium-sized ones, kinda, you know? I don't know. But yeah, if anyone's wondering what kind of dog to imagine when the main guy is talking about Nobs or Nobby or whatever he's gonna call him, he's already said a couple of different names for him. It's an Airedale Terrier, apparently. And they're cute little flowers. And I'm surprised that one bit a big ol' sailor in the neck. Hello, Jaran. Oh, I love Frevi JD, but I think she mainly streams when I'm asleep. I'm pretty sure. Otherwise I would try and catch a bit more of her streams. But yeah, at that point you just can't, right? But alright, enough rambling in between. Chapter 3. Those were anxious days, during which I had but little opportunity to associate with Liz. I had given her the commander's room, Bradley and I taking that of the deck officer, while Olsen and two of our best men occupied the room ordinarily allotted to petty officers. I made Nopsa's bed down in Liz's room, for I knew she would feel less alone. Nothing of much moment occurred for a while after we left British waters behind us. Oh, and thank you for the follow, XLPX. Hope you're doing well. We ran steadily along upon the surface, making good time. The first two boats we sighted made off as fast as they could go, and the third, a huge freighter, fired on us, forcing us to submerge. 'Twas after this that our troubles commenced. One of the diesel engines broke down in the morning, and while we were working on it, the forward port diving tank commenced to fill. I was on deck at the time and noted the gradual list, guessing at once what was happening. I leaped for the hatch and slamming it closed above my head, and up to the central. By this time the craft was going down by the head, with a most unpleasant list to port, and I didn't wait to transmit orders to someone else, but ran as fast as I could for the valve that let the sea into the forward port diving tank. It was wide open. To close it and to have the pump started that would empty it were the work of but a minute, but we had a close call. Sorry, getting a bit sniffly. After that I kept a guard pacing the length of the narrow craft. We worked upon the engine all that day and night, and half the following day. Most of the time we drifted idly upon the surface, but toward noon we sighted smoke due west, and having found that only enemies inhabited the world for us, I ordered that the other engine be started, so that we could move out of the path of the oncoming steamer. The moment the engine started to turn, however, there was a grinding sound of tortured steel, and when it had been stopped we found that someone had placed a cold chisel in one of the gears. It was another 2 days before we were ready to limp along, half repaired. The night before the repairs were completed, the sentry came to my room and awoke me. He was rather an intelligent fellow of the English middle class, in whom I had much confidence. "Well, Wilson," I asked, "what's the matter now?" He raised his finger to his lips and came closer to me. "I think I found out who's doing the mischief," he whispered, and nodded his head toward the Gulliver's room. "I seen her sneaking from the crew's room just now," he went on. "She'd been in guessing with the bush commander. Benson seen her in there last night too, but he never said nothing till I was on watch tonight. Benson's sure they're slow in the head. I never puts 2 and 2 together till someone else has made 4 out of it." If the man had come in and struck me suddenly in the face, I could have been no more surprised. "Say nothing of this to anyone," I ordered. "Keep your eyes and ears open, and report every suspicious thing you see or hear." The man saluted and left me, but for an hour or more I tossed, restless upon my hard bunk, in an agony of jealousy and fear. Finally I fell into a troubled sleep. It was daylight when I awoke. We were steaming along slowly upon the surface, my orders having been to proceed at half speed until we could take an observation and determine our position. The sky had been overcast all the previous day and all night, but as I stepped into the central that morning, I was delighted to see that the sun was again shining. The spirits of the men seemed improved, everything seemed propitious. I forgot at once the cruel misgivings of the night as I set to work to take my observation. Right, hold on, let me mute for a second. I can't move my chair closer since there's a cat on my lap in between me and the desk. And until she wants off, I'm a bit far from the mic, so let me mute it, try and move my mic a bit closer. Never mind, she just jumped out of my lap. Okay. Cats sometimes, you know. Cats sometimes. What a blow awaited me. The sextant and chronometer had both been broken beyond repair. And they had been broken just this very night. They had been broken upon the night that Liz had been talking with von Schoenverts. I think that it was this last thought which hurt me the most. I could look the other disaster in the face with equanimity, but the bald fact that Liz might be a traitor appalled me. I called Bradley and Olsen on deck and told them what had happened, but for the life of me, I couldn't bring myself to repeat what Wilson had reported to me the previous night. In fact, as I had given the matter thought, it seemed incredible that the girl could have passed through my room in which Bradley and I slept, and then carried on a conversation in the crew's room in which von Schoenverts was kept, without having been seen by more than a single man. Bradley shook his head. I can't make it out, he said. One of those butchers must be pretty clever to come in over us all like this, but they haven't harmed us as much as they think. There are still the extra instruments. Oh, hello, Jessie. Hope you had a good sleep. Hope it was nice. Wasn't too long, I think, if you just woke up right. Presuming you were in Sane Stream, that wasn't that long ago. Hope it was a nice sleep nonetheless. And good morning to you. Hope you're feeling better and that you are feeling not too well right lately. Hope you're feeling good at the moment. Hope you're doing well. It was my turn now to shake a doleful head. There are no extra instruments, I told them. They too have disappeared, as did the wireless apparatus. That's good to hear, Jessie, that's good to hear. Well, let's hope we're doing even better along the day. And hello, birthday cake. Hope you can get some sleep, and hope you can soon. And hello, Will-I Diente. Hope you're doing well. My background remover isn't liking the current position. I have my microphone and oh well, it'll have to do. I'm liking this position, so. And Millenarium and Blaze-Kit. Was I being loud? Did I suddenly wake up? Wake up all the lurkers. Oh Lord. Hope you're all doing well. Both men looked at me in amazement that all of the instruments were gone. Well, we still have the compass and the sun, said Olsen. They may be after getting a compass some night, but there's too many of us around in the daytime for him to get the sun. Hello, Lorsings. And thank you for keeping me hydrated. Nothing loud, good, good. I was getting worried for a second. A lot of people joining on in. Did I make it? Was there something loud? Oh no. Did we wake the lurkers? But we're good then. 'Twas then that one of the men stuck his head up through the hatchway and seeing me, asked permission to come on deck and get a breath of fresh air. I recognized him as Benson, the man who Wilson had said, reported having seen Liz with von Schoenverts 2 nights before. I motioned him on deck and then called him to one side, asking if he had seen anything out of the way or unusual during his trick on watch the night before. The fellow scratched his head a moment and said, "No, and then as though it was an afterthought, he told me that he had seen the girl in the cruise room about midnight, talking with a German commander, but as there hadn't seemed to him to be any harm in it, he hadn't said anything about it. Hold on, let me move my mic a bit again. I think that's good, that's good. Telling him never to fail to report to me anything in the slightest out of the ordinary routine of the ship, I dismissed him. Several of the other men now asked permission to come on deck, and soon all but those actually engaged in some necessary duty were standing around, smoking and talking, all in the best of spirits. I took advantage of the absence of the men upon the deck to go below for my breakfast, which the cook was already preparing upon the electric stove. This followed by Nubs, appeared as I entered the central. She met me with a pleasant good morning, which I am afraid I replied to in a tone that was rather constrained and surly. Hold on. Cat is meowing a little bit. Alright, let's hope she just wants attention. I think that's it, but... Here. Put her on my lap and I'll continue on narrating. And I replied to this after a good morning. Will you have breakfast with me? I suddenly asked the girl, determined to commence a probe of my own along the lines which duty demanded. She nodded a sweet acceptance of my invitation, and together we sat down at the little table of the officers' mess. You slept well last night? I asked. All night, she replied. I'm a splendid sleeper. Oh, thank you for the follow, Max, RDG. Hope you're doing well. Her manner was so straightforward and honest that I could not bring myself to believe in her duplicity yet. Thinking to surprise her into a betrayal of her guilt, I blurted out. The chronometer and sextant were both destroyed last night. There's a traitor among us. But she never turned a hair by way of evidence and guilty knowledge of the catastrophe. Who could it have been? She cried. The Germans would be crazy to do it, for their lives are as much at stake as ours. Men are often glad to die for an ideal of patriotism perhaps, I replied, and the willingness to martyr themselves includes a willingness to sacrifice others, even those who love them. Women are much the same, except that they will go even further than most men. They will sacrifice everything, even honor, for love. I watched her face carefully as I spoke, and I thought that I detected a very faint flush mounting her cheek. Seeing an opening and an advantage, I sought to follow her up. Take von Skunverts, for instance, I continued. He would doubtless be glad to die integral with him, if he prevented no other way the falling of this vessel into enemy hands. He would sacrifice anyone, even you, and if you still love him, he might be as ready too, do you understand? She looked at me in wide-eyed consternation for a moment, and then she went very wide and rose from her seat. I do, she replied, and turning her back upon me, she walked quickly toward her room, I started to follow, for even believing what I did, I was sorry that I had heard her. I reached the door to the crew's room, just behind her, and in no time the Season's converts leaned forward and whispered something to her as she paused. But she must have guessed that she might be watched, for she passed on. That afternoon is clouded over, the wind mounted to a gale, and the sea rose until the craft was wallowing and rolling frightfully. Nearly everyone on board was sick. The air became foul and oppressive. For 24 hours I did not leave my post in the conning tower, as both Olsen and Bradley were sick. Finally I found that I must get a little rest, and so I looked about for someone to relieve me. Benson volunteered. He had not been sick, and assured me that he was a former RN man and had been detailed for submarine duty for over 2 years. I was glad that it was he, for I had considerable confidence in his loyalty, and so it was with a feeling of security that I went below and lay down. There's just someone sitting on my lap, and I'm supporting her head up with my hand. The afternoon had clouded over. Oh wait, already that paragraph. I slept 12 hours straight, and when I awoke and discovered what I had done, I lost no time in getting to the conning tower. There sat Benson as wide awake as could be, and the compass showed that we were heading straight into the west. The storm was still raging, nor did it abate its fury until the 40th. We were all very well done up, and looked forward to the time when we could go on deck and fill our lungs with fresh air. During the whole 4 days I had not seen the girl, as she evidently kept closely to her room, and during this time no untoward incident had occurred aboard the boat, a fact which seemed to strengthen the web of circumstantial evidence about her. This cat is really in a weird way now. I don't know if I can show. Alright. Let me see if I bend this downward a bit. I can't go more down than that. But just she's got her hind legs on my lap and just climbed into my hand with her front legs. But alright. For 6 more days after the storm lessened, and there she went off, jumping out of my lap again. Never mind. Good things aren't meant to last. Oh, and thank you for the follow. I love them more. Hope you're doing well. From hell? That's quite a ways away. Hope you're doing well there. Get nice and cozy, Mr. Second. For 6 more days after the storm lessened, we still had fairly rough weather, nor did the sun once show himself during all that time. For a season, it was now the middle of June. The storm was unusual, but being from Southern California, I was accustomed to unusual weather. In fact, I have discovered that the world over, unusual weather prevails at all times of the year. And then, thank you for keeping me hydrated. It's a good idea to stay hydrated. Oh, I'm not from Scotland, I'm from the Netherlands. But not that much better weather, but no rain at the moment. How's the weather over there? Pretty cold, I presume. No, the Netherlands. Or, well, I don't want to say Holland, since Holland is just a small part of it. Oh, that's still a bit off. We kept steadily to our westward course, and as the U-33 was one of the smallest submersibles we ever turned out, I knew that we must be pretty close to the North American coast. What puzzled me most was the fact that for 6 days we had not sighted a single ship. It seemed remarkable that we could cross the Atlantic almost to the coast of the American continent without glimpsing smoke or sail. And at last I came to the conclusion that we were way off our course, but whether to the north or to the south, of it I could not determine. I don't know, I love that. I'm a small streamer as well. It may not look like it right now, but most of this is just all love and support from some lovely people that raid me otherly today. I normally pull about 10 to 20 viewers. I don't know, but don't shoot for numbers. Just have fun. Just enjoy your time. On the 7th day, the sea lay comparatively calm at early dawn. There was a slight haze upon the ocean, which had cut off a few of the stars, but conditions all pointed toward a clear morrow, and I was on deck anxiously awaiting the rising of the sun. My eyes were glued upon the impenetrable mist astern, for there in the east I should see the first glow of the rising sun, that would assure me we were still upon the right course. Oh, there's a cooldown on it, so you guys don't drown me in water. See, it's good to keep me hydrated, but I don't want to get drowned in water either and have to go or leave my bladder every 20 minutes or so. This is my bladder in that bag. Gradually, the heavens lightened, but astern I could see no intenser glow that would indicate the rising sun behind the mist. Bradley was standing at my side. Presently he touched my arm. "Look, Captain," he said and pointed south. I looked and gasped, for there directly to port I saw outlined through the haze the red top of the rising sun. Hurrying to the tower, I looked at a compass. It showed that we were holding steadily upon our westward course. Either the sun was rising in the south, or the compass had been tampered with. The conclusion was obvious. You never know, the sun may have been rising in the south. I went back to Bradley and told him what I had discovered. Yeah, exactly, Misk. It's a bit of a cold. And I concluded, we can't make another 500 knots without oil. Our provisions are running low and so is our water. God only knows how far south we have run. There's nothing to do, he replied, other than to alter our course once more towards the west. We must rail land soon or we shall all be lost. I told him to do so, and then I set to work improvising a crude sextant with which we finally took our bearings in a rough and motion satisfactory manner. For when the work was done, we did not know how far from the truth the result might be. It showed us to be about 20 degrees north and 30 degrees west, nearly 2,500 miles of our course. In short, if our reading was anywhere near correct, we must have been travelling due south for 6 days. Bradley now relieved Benson, for we had arranged our shifts so that Leather and Dawson now divided the nights, while Bradley and I alternate with one another during the days. Let me actually quickly in between, since I'm just curious. Let me check where that is, about 20 degrees north and 30 degrees west. Google Maps just accepts that, doesn't it? Oh, not with this notation. Let me... Sorry if this is taking too long and taking away from the reading. I'm just curious. Still not getting it. Here, this side has it. Well, it is wide in the ocean. Yeah, it's quite in between Europe and America, or the United States. Then there's some small islands too. Maybe they're gonna be going there. Who knows? I questioned both Olsen and Benson closely in the matter of the compass, but each stoutly maintained that no one had tampered with it during his tour of duty. Well, Jesse, maybe in due time. At some point, kids develop a cool down quite late in their life, but in due time. Benson gave me a knowingly smile, as much as to say, well, you and I know did this, yet I could not believe that I was the girl. Oh, that. Hope you're managing to relax a little bit, anyways. Yeah, best make sure that cake is gone pretty soon, and that should hopefully quiet down a bit as well. Me turn my cam a bit higher again though. I'm disappearing off there. We kept our westerly course for several hours when the lookout's cry announced a sill. I ordered the U-33 score altered, and we bore down upon the stranger, for I had come to a decision which was the result of necessity. We could not lie there in the middle of the Atlantic and starve to death if there was any way out of it. The sailing ship saw us while we were still a long way off. It was evidenced by our efforts to escape. There was scarcely any wind, however, and their care was hopeless, so when we drew near and signalled her to stop, she came into the wind and lay there with her sails flapping idly. We moved in quite close to her. She was the Ballman of Almstead, Sweden, with a general cargo from Brazil for Spain. I explained our circumstances to our skipper and asked for food, water and oil, but when he found that we were not German, he became very angry and abusive, and started to draw away from us. But I was in no mood for any such business. Turning toward Bradley, who was in the conning tower, I snapped out, "Gun service on deck, to the diving stations." We had no opportunity for drill, but every man had been posted as to his duties, and the German members of the crew understood that it was obedience or death for them. As each was accompanied by a man with a pistol, most of them, though, were only too glad to obey me. Bradley passed the order down to the ship, and a moment later the gun crew clambered up the narrow ladder, and at my direction trained their piece upon the slow-moving Swede. "Fire a shot across her bow," I instructed the gun captain. Except that from me it didn't take that Swede long to see the error of his way, and get a red and white pennant signifying, "I understand," to the masthead. Once again the sails flapped idly, and I ordered him to lower a boat and come after me. With Olsen and a couple of the Englishmen, I boarded the ship, and from what cargo selected what we needed: oil, provisions, and water. I gave the master of the Balman a receipt for what we took together, with an affidavit signed by Bradley, Olsen, and myself, stating briefly how we had come into possession of the U-33, and the urgency of our need for what we took. We addressed both to any British agent with the request that the owners of the Balman be reimbursed, but whether or not they were, I do not know. Let me see it as a footnote on that, the only endnote in the book. Let me read that real quick, that's fun little extra info. Late in July 1916, an item in the shipping news mentioned the Swedish sailing vessel Balman, Rio de Janeiro to Barcelona, sunk by a German raider sometime in June. A single survivor in an open boat was picked up off the Cape Verde Islands in a dying condition. He expired without giving any details. Never mind, not a fun little. What did I expect? It was water. It was water time. Yeah, alright. You. Alright, miss. Enjoy your audiobook and sleep well if I don't see you again. And thank you for the lyric. Where was I before my cat interrupted me? Hope that wasn't too loud. Just go to sleep or something, girl, please. With water, food, and oil aboard, we felt that we had obtained a new lease of life. Now too we knew definitely where we were, and I determined to make for Georgetown, British Guiana. But I was destined to again suffer bitter disappointment. 6 of us of the loyal crew had come on deck either to serve the gun or board the Swede during our set to wither, and now one by one we descended the ladder into the central. I was the last to come, and when I reached the bottom, I found myself looking into the muzzle of a pistol in the hands of Baron Frederick von Scanforts. I saw all my men lined up at one side, with the remaining 8 Germans standing guard over them. I couldn't imagine how it had happened, but it had. Later I learned that they had first overpowered Benson, who was asleep in his bunk, and taken his pistol from him, and then had found it an easy matter to disarm the cook and the remaining 2 Englishmen below. After that it had been comparatively simple to stand at the foot of the ladder and arrest each individual as he has descended. The first thing von Gunvor did was to send for me and announce that as a pirate I was to be shot early the next morning. Then he explained that the U-33 would course or cruise in these waters for a time, sinking neutral and enemy shipping indiscriminately, and looking for one of the German raiders that was supposed to be in these parts. He didn't shoot me the next morning as he had promised, and it has never been clear to me why he postponed the execution of my sentence. Instead he kept me ironed just as he had been. Then he kicked Bradley out of my room and took it all to himself. Hello, Roll Positive Gaming. Thank you for the follow. Hope you're doing well. We cruised for a long time, sinking many vessels, all but one by gunfire, but we did not come across a German raider. I was surprised to note that von Sconvert often permitted Benson to take command, but I reconciled this by the fact that Benson appeared to know more of the duties of a submarine commander than did any of the stupid Germans. Once or twice Liz passed me, but for the most part she kept to her room. The first time she hesitated as though she wished to speak to me, but I did not raise my head, and finally she passed on. Then one day came the word that we were about to round the Horn, and that von Sconvert had taken it, and was full ahead to cruise up along the Pacific coast of North America, and prey upon all sorts and conditions of merchantmen. I'll put the fear I've got in the Kaiser into them, he said. The very first day we entered the South Pacific we had an adventure. It turned out to be quite the most exciting adventure I had ever encountered. It fell about this way. About 8 bells of the forenoon watch I heard a hail from the deck, and presently the footsteps of the entire ship's company, from the amount of noise I heard at the ladder. Someone yelled back to those who had not yet reached the level of the deck. "It's the raider, the German raider Geyer." I saw that we had reached the end of our rope. Below all was quiet. Not a man remained. A door opened at the end of the narrow hall, and presently Nobs came trolling up to me. He licked my face and rolled over on his back, reaching for me with his big awkward paws. Then other footsteps sounded approaching me. I knew whose they were, and I looked straight down at the flooring. The girl was coming almost at a run. She was at my side immediately. "Here," she cried quick, and she slipped something into my hand. It was a key, the key to my irons. "Hello there, Fox. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're being nice and relaxed at the moment, but with your busy schedule I presume unfortunately not." She paused. It was a key to my irons. At my side she also laid a pistol, and then she went on into the central. As she passed me I saw that she carried another pistol for herself. It did not take me long to liberate myself, and I was at her side. "How can I thank you?" I started, but she shut me up with a word. "Hello, Ellie. Hope you're doing well." "Do not thank me," she said coldly. "I do not care to hear you thanks or any other expression from you. Do not stand there looking at me. I have given you a chance to do something. Now do it." The last was a peremptory command that made me jump. Glancing up I saw that the tower was empty, and I lost no time in clambering up, looking about me. About 100 yards off lay a small swift cruiser raider, and above her floated a German man-o'-war's flag. A boat had just been lowered, and I could see it moving toward us, filled with officers and men. The cruiser lay dead ahead. My, I thought, what a wonderful dark. I stopped even thinking. So surprised and shocked was I by the boldness of my imagery. The girl was just below me. I looked down on her wistfully. Could I trust her? Why had she released me at this moment? I must. There was no other way. I dropped back below. Ask Olsen to step down here, please, I requested, and don't let anyone see you asking. She looked at me with a puzzled expression on her face for an embarrassed fraction of a second, and then she turned and went up the ladder. A moment later Olsen returned and the girl followed him. Quick, I whispered to the big Irishman, and made for the bow compartment where the torpedo tubes are built into the boat. Here too were the torpedoes. The girl accompanied us, and when she saw the thing I had in mind, she stepped forward and lent a hand to the swing of the great cylinder of death and destruction into the mouth of its tube. With oil and main strength we shoved the torpedo home of hearts that the U-33 had not swung her bow away from the prey. No, thank God. Never could aim have been truer. I signaled back to Olsen. Let her go. The U-33 trembled from stem to stern as the torpedo shot from its tube. I saw a wide whale leap from her bow, straight toward the enemy cruiser. A chorus of horror yells arose from the deck of our own craft. I saw the officer stand suddenly erect in the boat that was approaching us, and I heard loud cries and curses from the raiders. Then I turned my attention to my own business. Most of the men on the submarine's deck were standing in paralyzed fascination, staring at the torpedo. Bradley happened to be looking towards the conning tower and saw me. I sprang on deck and ran toward him. Quick, I whispered. While they were stunned, we must overcome them. A German was standing near Bradley, just in front of him. The Englishman struck the fellow a frantic blow upon the neck, and at the same time snatched his pistol from his holster. Von Skunvert had recovered from his first surprise quickly, and had turned toward the main hatch to investigate. I covered him with my revolver, and at the same instant the torpedo struck the raider. The terrific explosion drowning the German's command to his men. Bradley was now running from one to another of our men, and though some of the Germans saw and heard him, they seemed too stunned for action. Olsen was below, so that there were only 9 of us against 8 Germans, for the men Bradley had struck still lay upon the deck. Only 2 of us were armed, but the heart seemed to have gone out of the budget, and I put up but half-hearted resistance. Von Skunvert was the worst. He was fairly frenzied with rage and chagrin, and he came charging for me like a mad bull. And as he came, he discharged his pistol. If he'd stopped long enough to take aim, he might have gotten me, but his pace made him wild, so that not a shot touched me, and then we clinched and went to the deck. This left 2 pistols, which 2 of my own men were quick to appropriate. The Baron was no match for me in a hand-to-hand encounter, and I soon had him pinned to the deck and the life almost choked out of him. A half-hour later things had quietened down, and all was much the same as before the prisoners had revolted. Only we kept a much closer watch on Von's comforts. The gyre had sung while we were still battling upon our deck, and afterward we had drawn away toward the north, leaving the survivors to the attention of the single boat which had been making its way toward us when Olsen launched the torpedo. I suppose the poor devils never reached land, and if they did, they must probably perish on that cold and inhospitable shore, but I couldn't permit them aboard the U-33. We had all the Germans we could take care of. That evening the girl asked permission to go on deck. She said that she felt the effects of long confinement below, and I readily granted her request. I could not understand her, and I craved an opportunity to talk with her, again in an effort to fathom her and her intentions, and so I made it a point to follow her up the ladder. It was a clear, cold, beautiful night. The sea was calm except for the white water at our bows, and the two long radiating swells running far off into the distance upon either hand astern, forming a great V which our propellers filled with choppy waves. Benson was in the tower. We were bound for San Diego, and all looked well. Liz stood with a heavy blanket wrapped around her slender figure, and as I approached her, she half turned toward me to see who it was. When she recognized me, she immediately turned away. I want to thank you, I said, for your bravery and loyalty. You are magnificent. I am sorry you had the reason before to think that I doubted you. You did doubt me, she replied in a level voice. You practically accused me of hating Baron von Scunford. I can never forgive you. There was a great deal of finality in both her words and tone. I could not believe it, I said, and yet two of my men reported having seen you in conversation with von Scunford late at night upon two separate occasions, after each of which some great damage was found done to us in the morning. I didn't want to doubt you, but I carried all the responsibility of the lives of these men, of the safety of the ship, of your life and mine. I had to watch you, and I had to put you on your guard against the repetition of your madness. She was looking at me now with those great eyes of hers, very wide and round. Who told you that I spoke with Baron von Scunford that night, or any other time? She asked. I cannot tell you this, I replied, but it came to me from two different sources. And two men of light, she asserted without heat. I have not spoken to Baron von Scunford, other than in your presence when first we came aboard the U-33. And please, when you address me, remember that the others than my intimates. I am Miss LaRue. Did you ever get slapped in the face when you least expected it? No? Well, then you do not know how I felt at that moment. I could feel the hot red flush surging up my neck, across my cheeks, over my ears, clear to my scalp, and it made me love her all the more. It made me swear inwardly 1,000 solemn oaths that I would win her. Weirdly enough, yes, that same last kind of scene there on this chapter. That's kind of reminiscent with me. It was a long time ago when I was, I think, about 16, but I don't really know the lead up to it either. Somewhere between acquaintances and friends, but a girl just slapped me on the side of my face, on the cheek, with a flat palm, reasonably hard at that. I don't know, I think we both kind of laughed it off for some reason. And honestly, if I wasn't as daft as I am, probably might have had a relationship with her after, but I'm a daft man, I don't pick up on things. So we never did have much. Hello, Jasper, how do you do? Hope you're doing well. I'm kinda the kind of man you just need to ask out because otherwise actually nothing will happen, to be very honest. I'm doing good, I'm doing well. I was just about to take a little break since I just ended chapter 3 of the book, The Land That Time Forgot. And before jumping into chapter 4, I figured I'd take a quick break, get me some tea with honey, it's good for the voice. And refill my water bottle and all. So let me go and do that real quick. Sorry to do that right when you joined, but I'll be back in. I think it's usually taken me about 5 minutes, so let's say 5 minutes. I try and keep my breaks short, but breaks always end up being longer than you want them to be when streaming, that is. So I'll be right back. See you all in a bit. Hello, Safe 7, how do you do? Hope you're doing well. And I'm back. Hope that wasn't too long. But I kinda know what I want. I think that was about 5 minutes. That's good, that's good. So it was probably around 5 minutes and maybe a bit more. But yeah, I don't know, I don't want it more than 5 minutes. And start getting along, right? But I got some tea with honey, so recharging the voice for the other couple of chapters I want to read today. Well, I don't think I can do that with my tea yet. It's quite hot. So with water we go. Thank you for keeping me hydrated, Ellie. And I'll try my tea after the first paragraph of chapter 4. No title on these chapters, unfortunately. Or this one at least. For several days things went along in about the same course. I took our position every morning with my crude sextants, but the results were always most unsatisfactory. They always showed considerable westing, but I knew that we had been sailing due north. I blamed my crude instruments and kept on. Then one afternoon the girl came to me. "Pardon me," she said, "but were I you, I should watch this man Benson, especially when he is in charge." I asked her what she meant, thinking I could see the influence of Fun's comfort raising a suspicion against one of my most trusted men. "If you will know, the boat's course a half hour after Benson goes on duty," she said. "You will know what I mean, and you will understand why he prefers a night watch. Possibly, too, you will understand some other things that have taken place aboard." So she's spying on the people. Sorry, there we go. Better quick typing in between. That is lovely. I mean, next to honey, the tea I took has like a lot of spices in it, so it's kind of kicking me up a bit. A nice kick in my lazy arse for today. Anyhow, then she went back to her room, thus ending the conversation. I waited half an hour after Benson had gone on duty, and then I went on deck, passing through the conning tower where Benson sat, and looking at the compass. It showed that our course was a north by west, that is, 1 point west of north, which was for a presumed position about right. I was greatly relieved to find that nothing was wrong, for the girl's words had caused me considerable apprehension. I was about to return to my room when a thought occurred to me that again caused me to change my mind. It incidentally came near proving my death warrant. When I had left for the conning tower little more than a half hour since, the sea had been breaking over the port bow, and it seemed to me quite improbable that in so short a time an equally heavy sea could be deluging us from the opposite side of the ship. Winds may change quickly, but not a long, heavy sea. Oh, thank you for the follow, Jasper. Glad you're enjoying yourself. Hope you're having a nice and relaxing time. There was only one other solution. since I left the tower, our course had been altered some 8 points. Turning quickly, I climbed out upon the cunning tower. A single glance at the heavens confirmed my suspicions. The constellations which should have been dead ahead were directly starboard. We are sailing due west. I put a lot of honey in, by the way. Oh well, it's a cheat day today anyway, so I'm having pizza for another. More jumping jacks the upcoming days. Just for an instant longer I stood there to check up my calculations. I wanted to be quite sure before I accused Benson and perfidy. And about the only thing I came near making quite sure of was death. I cannot see even how I escaped it. I was standing on the edge of the conning tower when a heavy palm suddenly struck me between the shoulders and hurled me forward into space. The drop to the triangular deck forward of the conning tower might easily have broken a leg for me, or I might have slipped off onto the deck and rolled overboard, but fate was upon my side. As I was only slightly bruised, as I came to my feet, I heard the conning tower cover slam. There is a ladder which leads from the deck to the top of the tower. Up this, I scrambled as fast as I could go, but Benson had the cover tight before I reached it. Oh, well, it's getting pretty late for you, isn't it, Jerry? I don't know if you're on a normal sleep schedule, but it's getting well in the evening, I think, right? So hey, nothing wrong with dozing off for a little bit and maybe going to sleep soon. Yeah, my tea is doing me well as well. As I came to my feet, I heard the conning tower cover slam. There is a ladder which leads from the deck to the top of the tower. Up this I scrambled as fast as I could go, but Benson had the cover tight before I reached it. I stood there a moment in dumb consternation. What did the fellow intend? What was going on below? If Benson was a traitor, how could I know that there were not other traitors among us? I cursed myself for my folly in going out upon the deck, and then this thought suggested another, a hideous one. Who was it that had really been responsible for my being here? Hello, for leave, and thank you for the follow. Also, it just randomly popped up to me. But let me do some quick shout-outs. If any of you don't follow, or don't already follow any of these lovely people, go give them a follow. There's a lovely Luna Rally. She does some ASMR and she gave me a lovely raid earlier today. She's probably either hard looking or off for the day. Oh well. And there's a lovely Fox and the Raven, who came by a bit earlier and is lurking now, I think. He makes some amazing ASMR. And the only one I remember at the top of my mind, Labibo Bibo, or Bobby. And she makes some lovely ASMR as well. Some of you may not follow her yet, go give her a follow. But alright, quick shout out around them, now that I actually remember it for once again. The next one will be in an hour or 5. No, I won't be live that long. Thinking to attract attention from inside the craft, I again ran down the ladder and under the small deck, only to find that the steel covers of the conning tower windows were shut. And then I leaned with my back against the tower and cursed myself for a gullible idiot. I glanced at the bow. The sea seemed to be getting heavier, for every wave now washed completely over the lower deck. I watched them for a moment, and then a sudden chill pervaded my entire being. It was not a chill of wet clothing or dashing spray which cleansed my face. No, it was the chill of the hand of death upon my heart. In an instant I had turned the last corner of life's highway and was looking God Almighty in the face. The U-33 was being slowly submerged. It would be difficult, even impossible, to set down in writing my sensations at that moment. All I can particularly recall is that I laughed, though neither from a spirit of bravado nor from hysteria. And I wanted to smoke. Lord, how did I want to smoke? But that was out of the question. I watched the water rise until the little deck I stood on was awash, and then I clambered once more to the top of the conning tower. From the very slow submergence of the boat, I knew that Benson was doing the entire trick alone, that he was merely permitting the diving tanks to fill, and the diving rudders were not in use. The throwing of the engine ceased, and in its stead came the steady vibration of the electric motors. The water was halfway up the conning tower. I had perhaps 5 minutes longer on the deck. I tried to decide what I should do after I was washed away. Should I swim until exhaustion claimed me, or should I give up and end the agony at the first plunge? From below came 2 muffled reports. They sounded not like gunshots. Was Benson meeting with resistance? Personally, it could mean little to me, for even though my men might overcome the enemy, none would know of my predicament until long after it was too late to succor me. The top of the conning tower was now awash. I clung to the wireless mast while the great waves surged sometimes completely over me. I knew the end was near, and almost involuntarily I did that which I had not done since childhood. I prayed. After that I felt better. I clung and waited, but the water rose no higher. Instead it receded. Now the top of the conning tower received only the crests of the higher waves. Now the little triangular deck below became visible. What had occurred within? Did Benson believe me already gone? And was he emerging because of that belief? Or had he and his force been vanquished? The suspense was more wearing than that which I had endured while waiting for resolution. Presently the main deck came into view, and then the conning tower opened behind me, and I turned to look into the anxious face of Bradley. An expression of relief overspread his features. "Thank God, man," was all he said as he reached forth and dragged me into the tower. I was cold and numb and rather all in. Another few minutes would have done for me, I am sure, but the warmth of the interior helped to revive me, aided and embedded by some brandy which Bradley poured down my throat, from which it nearly removed the membrane. That brandy would have revived a corpse. I got down into the Central, I saw the Germans lined up on one side, with a couple of my men with pistols standing over them. Von Skunford was among them. On the floor lay Benson moaning, and beyond him stood a girl, a revolver in one hand. I looked about, bewildered. "What has happened down here?" I asked. "Tell me." Bradley replied, "You see the result, sir," he said. "It might have been a very different result, but for Miss LaRue, we were all asleep. Benson had to relieve the guard early in the evening. There was no one to watch him, no one but Miss LaRue. She felt the submergence of the boat and came out of her room to investigate. She was just in time to see Benson at the diving rudders. When he saw her, he raised his pistol and fired point blank at her, but he missed and she fired and didn't miss. The two shots awakened everyone, and as our men were armed, the result was inevitable as you see it, but it would have been very different had it not been for Miss LaRue. It was she who closed the diving tank seacocks and roused Olsen and me, and had the pump started to empty them. And there I had been thinking that through her machinations I had been lured to the deck and to my death. I could have gone on my knees to her and begged her for forgiveness, or at least I could have, had I not been Anglo-Saxon. As it was, I could only remove my soggy cap and bow, and mumble my appreciation. She made no reply, only turned and walked very rapidly toward her room. Should I have heard aright? Was it really a sob that came floating back to me through the narrow aisle of the U-33? And I just realized I never put my Discord on streamer mode. Not that you all will hear notifications from it anyway. There. Let me have that done. Benson died that night. He remained deviant almost to the last, but just before he went out he motioned to me, and I leaned over to catch the faintly whispered words. "I did it alone," he said. "I did it because I hate you. I hate all your kind. I was kicked out of your shipwreck at Santa Monica. I was locked out of California. I am an IWW. I became a German agent, not because I love them, for I hate them too, but because I wanted to injure Americans whom I hated more. I threw the wireless apparatus overboard. I destroyed the chronometer and the sextant. I devised a scheme for varying the compass to suit my wishes. I told Wilson that I had seen the girl talking with von Skunford's, and I made the poor egg think he had seen her doing the same thing. I am sorry that my plans failed. I hate you." He didn't die for a half hour after that, nor did he speak again aloud, but just a few seconds before he went to meet his maker. His lips moved an even fainter whisper, and as I leaned closer to catch his word, what do you suppose I heard? "Now I lay me down to sleep." That was all. Benson was dead. We threw his body overboard. The wind of that night brought on some pretty rough weather, with a lot of black cloud which persisted for several days. We didn't know what course we had been holding, and there was no way of finding out, as we could no longer trust the compass, not knowing what Benson had done to it. The long and the short of it was that we cruised about aimlessly until the sun came out again. I'll never forget that day or its surprises. We reckoned, or rather guessed, that we were somewhere off the coast of Peru. The wind which had been blowing fitfully from the east suddenly veered around into the south, and presently we felt a sudden chill. Hello, Skyfoon. Thank you for a follow. Hope you're doing well. Peru, snorted Wilson. Don't worry over smelling icebergs of Peru. Icebergs, nothing, exclaimed one. Icebergs, nothing, exclaimed one of the Englishmen. Why, man, they don't come north of 14 air near waters. Then, replied Olsen, you're sour at 14, me boy. We thought he was crazy, but he wasn't, for that afternoon we sighted the great bergs out of us, and we'd be running north, we thought, for days. I can tell you we were a discouraged lot, but we got a faint thrill of hope early the next morning when the lookout bawled down the open edge. Land, northwest by west. I think we were all sick for the sight of land. I know that I was, but my interest was quickly dissipated by the sudden illness of 3 of the Germans. Almost simultaneously, they commenced vomiting. They couldn't suggest any explanation for it. I asked them what they had eaten and found they had eaten nothing other than the food cooked for all of us. Have you drunk anything? I asked, for I knew that there was liquor aboard, and medicines in the same locker. Only water, moaned one of them. We all drank water together this morning. We opened a new tank. Maybe it was the water. I started an investigation, which revealed a terrifying condition. Someone, probably Benson, had poisoned all the running water on the ship. It would have been worse though had land not been the sight of land filled her with renewed hope. Our course had been altered, and we were rapidly approaching what appeared to be a precipitous headland, cliffs seemingly rising perpendicularly out of the sea, faded away into the mist upon either hand as we approached. The land before us might have been a continent, so mighty appeared the shoreline, yet we knew that we must be thousands of miles from the nearest western landmass, New Zealand or Australia. We took our bearings with our crude and inaccurate instruments. We searched the chart, we cudgelled our brains, and at last 'twas Bradley who suggested a solution. He was in the tower and watching the compass, to which he called my attention. The needle was pointing straight toward the land. Bradley swung the helm hard to starboard. I could feel the U-33 respond, and yet the Yarrow still clung straight and sure toward distant cliffs. What did you make of it? I asked him. Did you ever hear of Caproni? He asked. An early Italian navigator, I returned. Yes, he followed Cook about 1721. He is scarcely mentioned even by contemporaneous historians, probably because he got into political difficulties on his return to Italy. It was the fashion to scoff at his claims, but I recall reading one of his works, his only one I believe, in which he described a new continent in the South Seas, a continent made up of some strange metal which attracted the compass, a rock-bound and hospitable coast without beach or harbour which extended for hundreds of miles. He could make no landing, nor in the several days he cruised about it did he see sign of life. He called it Caprona and sailed away. sir. We are looking upon the coast of Caprona, uncharted and forgotten for 200 years. Well, if you are right, it might account for much of the deviation of the compass during the past 2 days. I suggested. Caprona has been luring us upon her deadly rocks. Well, we'll accept their challenge. We'll land upon Caprona along that long front that must be a vulnerable spot. We will find it, Bradley, for we must find it. We must find water on Caprona, or we must die. A lovely cup of tea. Sorry. And so we approached a coast upon which no living eyes had ever rested. Straight from the ocean's depths rose towering cliffs, shot with brown and blues and greens, withered moss and lichen and the fernigrees of copper, and everywhere the rusty ochre of iron pyrites. The cliff tops touch ragged were of such uniform height as to suggest the boundaries of a great plateau. Now and again we caught glimpses of verdure topping the rocky escarpment, as though bush or jungle had pushed outwards from a lush vegetation farther inland, to signal to an unseen world that Caprona lived and enjoyed in life beyond the austere and repellent coast. But metaphor, however poetic, never slakes a dry throat. To enjoy Caprona's romantic suggestions we must have water, and so we came in close, always sounding and skirted the shore, as close in as we dared cruise. We found fathomless depths and always the same undented coastline of bald cliffs. As darkness threatened we drew away, and lay well off the coast all night. We had not yet as yet really commenced to suffer for lack of water, but I knew that it would not be long before we did. And so at the first streak of dawn I moved in again, and once more took up the hopeless survey of the forbidding coast. Toward noon we discovered a beach, the first we had seen. It was a narrow strip of sand at the base of a part of a cliff that seemed lower than any we had before scanned. At its foot, half buried in the sand, lay great boulders, mute evidence that in a bygone age some mighty natural force had crumpled Caprona's barrier at this point. It was Bradley who first called our attention to a strange object lying among the boulders above the surf. Hold on. My lips are getting a bit dry and chapped. So. Hope those sounds aren't too loud. Just having fun with it. Alright. Looks like a man, he said, and he passed his glasses to me. I looked long and carefully, and could have sworn that the thing I saw was the sprawled figure of a human being. Miss LaRue was on deck with us. I turned and asked her to go below. Without a word she did as I bade. Then I stripped, and as I did so, Nobs looked questioningly at me. He had been wont at home to enter the surf with me, and evidently had not forgotten it. "What are you going to do, sir?" asked Olsen. "I'm going to see what that thing is on the shore," I replied. "If it's a man, it may mean that Caprona is inhabited, may merely mean that some poor devils were shipwrecked here. I ought to be able to tell from the clothing which is more near to truth. How about sharks? Queried Olsen. Sure you ought to carry a knife. Here you are, sir, cried one of the men. It was a long, slim blade of it, one that I could carry between my teeth, and so I accepted it gladly. Keep close in, I directed Bradley, and then I dived over the side and struck out for a narrow beach. There was another splash directly behind me, and turning my head I saw faithful old Nubs swimming valiantly in my wake. The surf was not heavy. I had on left for quite a bit too long. The surf was not heavy and there was no undertow, so we made shore easily, effecting an equally easy landing. And thank you for the follow, Luna Band and Cosmic Secret Keeper. Hope you're doing well. Good weekend to y'all. The beach was composed largely of small stones worn smooth by the action of water. There was little sand, though, from the deck of the U-33. The beach had appeared to be all sand, and I saw no evidences of mollusca or crustacea, such as are common to all beaches I have previously seen. And thank you for keeping me hydrated. I attribute this to the fact of the smallness of the beach, the enormous depth of surrounding water, and the great distance at which Caprona lies from her nearest neighbour. As Nobbs and I approached the recumbent figure farther up the beach, I was appraised by my nose that whether man or not, the thing had once been organic and alive, but that for some time it had been dead. Nobbs howled, snivelled and growled. A little later he sat down upon his haunches, raised his muzzle to the heavens and breathed forth a most dismal howl. I shied a small stone at him and bade him shut up. His uncanny noise made me nervous. When I had come quite close to the thing, I still could not say whether it had been man or beast. The carcass was badly swollen and partly decomposed. There was no sign of clothing upon it or about it. A fine brownish hair covered the chest and abdomen, and the face, the palms of the hand, the feet, the shoulders and back were practically hairless. The creature must have been about the height of a fair-sized man. Its features were similar to those of man, yet had it been a man? I could not say, for it resembled an ape no more than a man. Its large toes protruded laterally as do those of the semi-arboreal peoples of Borneo. The Philippines and other remote regions where low type still persists. The countenance might have been that of a cross between Pithecanthropus, the Java ape-man, and the daughter of the Piltdown race of prehistoric Sussex. A wooden cudgel lay beside this corpse. Now this set me thinking. There was no wood of any description in sight. There was nothing about the beach to suggest a wrecked mariner. There was absolutely nothing about the body to suggest that it might possibly in life have known a maritime experience. It was the body of a low type of man or a high type of beast. In neither instance would it have been of a seafaring race. Therefore I deduced that it was native to Caprona, that it lived inland, that it had fallen or been hurled from the cliffs above. Such being the case, Caprona was inhabitable, if not inhabited by man. But how to reach the inhabitable interior? That was the question. A closer view of the cliffs than had been afforded me from the deck of the U-33 only confirmed me conviction that no mortal man could scale those perpendicular heights. There was not a finger-hold nor a toe-hold upon them. I turned away, baffled. Hello there, Pycons. Thank you for a follow. Hope you're doing well. Nops and I met with no sharks upon our return journey to the submarine. My report filled everyone with theories and speculations, and with a new hope and determination. They all reasoned along the same line that I had reasoned. The conclusions were obvious, but not the weather. We are now thirstier than ever. The balance of that day we spent in continuing a minute and fruitless exploration of the monotonous coast. There was not another break in the frowning cliffs, not even another minute patch of pebbly beach. As the sun fell, so did our spirits. I had tried to make advances to the girl again, but she would have none of me, and so I was not only thirsty but otherwise sad and downhearted. I was glad when a new day broke the hideous spell of a sleepless night. Thirsty was, you could say, all right. The morning surge brought us no shred of hope. Caprona was impregnable. That was the decision of all that we kept on. It must have been about 2 bells of the afternoon watch that Bradley called my attention to the branch of a tree, with leaves upon it, floating on the sea. It may have been carried down to the ocean by a river, he suggested. And hello, Mr. Salzga, thank you for a follow. Hope you're doing well. Yes, I replied. It may have tumbled or been thrown off the top of one of these cliffs. Bradley's face fell. I thought that too, he replied, but I wanted to believe the other. Right, Jar, I cried. We must believe the other until we prove it false. We can't afford to give up hard now, when we need hard the most. The branch was carried down by a river, and we are going to find that river. I smote my open palm with a clenched fist, to emphasize a determination unsupported by hope. There, I cried suddenly, see that, Bradley? And I pointed at a spot closer to shore. See that, man? Some flowers and grasses and another leafy branch floated toward us. We both scanned the water and the coastline. Bradley evidently discovered something, or at least thought that he had. He called down for a bucket and a rope, and when they were passed up to him he lowered the former into the sea and drew it in filled with water. Of this he took a taste and, straightening up, looked into my eyes with an expression of elation, as much as to say, I told you so. This water is warm, he announced, and fresh. I grabbed the bucket and tasted its contents. The water was very warm and it was fresh, but there was a most unpleasant taste to it. Did you ever taste water from a stagnant pool full of tadpoles? Bradley asked. That's it, I exclaimed. That's just the taste exactly, though I haven't experienced it since boyhood. But how can water from a flowing stream taste thus? And what the dickens makes it so warm? It must be at least 70 or 80 Fahrenheit, possibly higher. And for everyone like me that is interested in what that is, probably 26 Celsius. It's quite warm for water. Yes, agreed Bradley. I You'd say higher, but where does it come from? It is easily discovered now that we have found it, I answered. It can't come from the ocean, so it must come from the land. All that we have to do is follow it, and sooner or later we shall come upon its source. We were already rather close in, but I ordered the U-33's prow turned to shore, and we crept slowly along, constantly dipping up the water and tasting it to assure ourselves that we didn't get outside the freshwater currents. There was a very light offshore wind and scarcely any breakers, so that the approach to the shore was continued without finding bottom. Yet though we were already quite close, we saw no indication of any indentation on the coast, from which even a tiny brooklet might issue, and certainly no mouth of a large river, such as this must necessarily be to freshen the ocean, even 200 yards from shore. The tide was running out, and this, together with the strong flow of the freshwater current, would have prevented our going against the cliffs, even had we not been under power, as it was we had to buck the combined forces in order to hold our position at all. We came up to within 25 feet of the sheer wall, which loomed high above us. There was no break in its forbidding face. As we suggested, or as we watched, the face of the waters and searched the cliff's high face, also suggested that the fresh water might come from a submarine geyser. This, he said, would account for its heat, but even as he spoke, a bush covered thickly with leaves and flowers bubbled to the surface and floated off astern. Flowering shrubs don't thrive in the subterranean caverns from which geysers spring, suggested Bradley. Olsen shook his head. It beats me, he said. I've got it, I exclaimed suddenly. Look there, and I pointed at the base of the cliff ahead of us, which the receding tide was gradually exposing to our view. They all looked and all saw what I had seen, the top of a dark opening in the rock, through which water was pouring out into the sea. It's the subterranean channel of an inland river, I cried. It flows through a land covered with vegetation and therefore a land upon which the sun shines. No subterranean caverns produce any order of plant life, even remotely resembling what I have seen disgorged by this river. Beyond those cliffs lie fertile lands and fresh water, perhaps game. The low thunder speaks. Thank you for the follow-up, you're doing well. Yes, sir, said Alden. Behind the cliffs, he spoke it through words were behind. Bradley laughed, a rather sorry laugh, though. You might as well call our attention to the fact, sir, he said, that science has indicated there is fresh water and vegetation on Mars. Not at all, I rejoined. A U-boat isn't constructed to navigate space, but it is designed to travel below the surface of the water. You'll be after sailing into that blank pocket, asked Olsen. I would, Olsen, I replied. We haven't one chance for life in 100,000 if we don't find food and water upon Caprona. This water coming out of the cliff is not salt, but neither is it fit to drink, though each of us has drunk. It is fair to assume that inland the river is fed by pure streams, that there are fruit and herbs and game. Shall we lie out there and die of thirst and starvation with a land of plenty possible, only a few hundred yards away? We have the means for navigating a subterranean river. Are we too cowardly to utilize these means? Be after going to it, said Olsen. I'm willing to see it through, agreed Bradley. Then under the bottom, with the best of luck and give 'em all, cried a young fellow who had been in the trenches. To the diving stations I commanded. And in less than a minute the deck was deserted. The conning tower covers had slammed to, and the U-33 was submerging possibly for the last time. I know where I had this feeling, and I think that most of the others did. As we went down, I sat in the tower with the searchlight projecting its seemingly feeble rays ahead. We submerged very slowly, and without headway more than sufficient to keep our nose in the right direction. And as we went down, I saw outlined ahead of us the black opening in the great cliff. It was an opening that would have admitted a half-dozen U-boats at once, at the same time roughly cylindrical in contour, and dark as the pit of perdition. As I gave the command which sent the U-33 slowly ahead, I could not but feel a certain uncanny presentiment of evil. Where are we going? What lay at the end of this great sewer? Have we bidden farewell forever to the sunlight and life? Or were there before us dangers even greater than those which we now faced? I tried to keep my mind from vain imagining by calling everything which I observed to the eager ears below. I was the eyes of the whole company, and I did my best not to fill them. We had advanced 100 yards, perhaps, when our first danger confronted us. Just ahead was a sharp right-angle turn in the tunnel. I could see the river's flotsam hurtling against the rocky wall upon the left, as it was driven on by the mighty current. And I feared for the safety of the U-33 in making so sharp a turn under such adverse conditions, but there was nothing for it but to try. I didn't want my fellows of the danger. I didn't warn my fellows of the danger. I could have caused them an useless apprehension. Hello, God. Thank you for the second month of something. Enjoy the lovely batch I got and a couple of emotes I have. And hope you're having a nice week. And welcome, welcome. But warning me, shipmates. I'm not quite sure. It might have caused them useless apprehension, for if we were to be smashed against the rocky wall, no power on earth could avert the quick end that would come to us. I gave the command full speed ahead, and went charging toward the menace. I was forced to approach the dangerous left-hand wall in order to make the turn. I depended upon the power of the motors to carry us through the surging waters in safety. Well, we made it, but it was a narrow squeak. As we swung around, the full force of the current caught us and drove the stern against the rocks. There was a thud which sent a tremor through the whole craft, and in a moment a nasty grinding as the steel hull scraped the rock wall. I expected momentarily the inrush of waters that would seal our doom, but presently from below came the welcome word that all was well. It's okay, well, sorry to hear that it's just okay. Hope things get better. And Maria said just thank you for the follow. Hope you're doing well. Oh well, alright, good. Hope work isn't too stressful. Although, let me quickly check. There's still a lot left in this book. I'm getting quite tired by now. I'm trying to decide whether I'll end at the end of this chapter or do one more after this. I'll have to see at the end of this chapter. I'll see. In another 50 yards was a second turn, this time toward the left, but it was more of a gentle curve, and we took it without trouble. After that it was plain sailing, though as far as I could know, there might be moose anything ahead of us, and my nerves strained to the snapping point every instant. After the second turn the channel ran comparatively straight. For between 150 and 200 yards, the waters grew suddenly lighter, and my spirits rose accordingly. I shouted down to those below that I saw daylight ahead, and a great shout of thanksgiving reverberated through the ship. A moment later we emerged into sunlit water, and immediately I raised the periscope and looked about me upon the strangest landscape I had ever seen. That's nice, goes out, that's nice. That's good to hear. Hope you have a great and relaxing time past that. We were in the middle of a broad and now sluggish river, the banks of which were lined by giant umbrageous ferns, raising their mighty fronts 50, 100, 200 feet into the quiet air. Close by us something rose to the surface of the river and dashed at the periscope. I had a fish in the wide, distended jaws, and then all was blurred out. A shiver ran down into the tower as the thing closed upon the periscope. A moment later it was gone and I could see again. Above the trees there soared into my vision a huge thing on bat-like wings, a creature large as a whale, but fashioned more of the order of a lizard. Then again something charged the periscope and blurred out the mirror. I will confess that I was almost gasping for breath as I gave the commands to emerge. Into what sort of strange land had fate guided us? The instant the deck was awash, I opened the conning tower hatch and stepped out. In another minute, the deck hatch lifted and those who were not on duty below streamed up the ladder. Olsen bringing Knops under one arm. For several minutes no one spoke. I think they must each been so overcome by awe as was I. All about us was a flora and fauna as strange and wonderful to us as might have been those upon a distant planet had we suddenly been miraculously transported through here to an unknown world. Even the grass upon the nearer bank was unearthly, lush and high and grew, and each blade bore upon its tip a brilliant flower, violet or yellow, or carmine or blue, making as gorgeous a sword as a human imagination might conceive. But alive it teemed. The tall, fern-like trees were alive with monkey snakes and lizards. Huge insects hummed and buzzed hither and thither. Mighty forms could be seen moving upon the ground in the thick forest, or the bosom of the river reeled with living things, and above flapped the wings of gigantic creatures, such as we are thought have been extinct throughout countless ages. Look, cried Olsen, would you look at the giraffe coming apart at the bottom of the sea? We looked in the direction he pointed and saw a long, glossy neck, surmounted by a small head rising off the surface of the river. Presently the back of the creature was exposed, brown and glossy as the water dripped from it. It turned its eyes upon us, opened its lizard-like mouth, and made it a shrill hiss and came for us. The thing must have been 16 or 18 feet in length, and closely been resembled pictures I had seen of restored plesiosaurus of the lower Jurassic. It charged as savagely as a mad bull, and one would have thought it intended to destroy and devour the mighty U-boat, as I verily believe it did intend. Hold on one sec, let me quickly mute so I can stretch a little bit. Hope that helps with the stuff. Alright, sorry about that. Just, did help though, did help. We were moving slowly up the river as the creature bore down upon us with distended jaws. The long neck was far outstretched, and the fore-flipper with which it swam were working with powerful strokes, carrying it forward at a rapid pace. When it reached the craft's side, the jaws closed upon one of the stanchions of the deck rail and tore it from its socket, as though it had been a toothpick stuck in putty. At this exhibition of titanic strength, I think we all simultaneously stepped backward, and Bradley drew his revolver and fired. The bullet struck the thing in the neck just above its body, but instead of disabling it merely increased its rage. Its hissing arose a shrill scream as it raised half its body out of the water onto the sloping sides of the hull of the U-33, and endeavoured to scramble upon the deck to devour us. A dozen shots rang out as we who were armed drew our pistols and fired at the thing, but though struck several times it showed no signs of succumbing. It only floundered farther aboard the submarine. I had noticed that the girl had come on deck and was standing not far behind me, and when I saw the danger to which we were all exposed, I turned and forced her toward the edge. We had not spoken for some days, and we did not speak now, but she gave me a disdainful look, which was quite as eloquent as words, but she gave, and she broke loose from my grasp. I saw I could do nothing with her unless I exerted force, and so I turned my back toward her, that I might be in a position to shield her from the strange reptile, should it really succeed in reaching the deck. And as I did, it seems I turned my gain down quite a bit ago. Hope none of you mind it, but here we go, we're up a bit again. Don't want to turn it too much up though, of course, just in case people get used to my new volume. But it should be better. I saw I could do nothing with her unless I exerted force, and so I turned with my back toward her, that I might be in a position to shield her from the strange reptile, should it really succeed in reaching the deck. And as I did so, I saw the thing raise one flipper over the rail, dart its head forward, and with the quickness of lightning seize upon one of the butches. I ran forward, discharging my pistol into the creature's body, in an effort to force it to relinquish its prey, but I might as profitably have shot at the sun. Shrieking and screaming, the German was dragged from the deck, and the moment the reptile was clear of the boat, it dived beneath the surface of the water, with its terrified prey. I think we were all more or less shaken by the frightfulness of the tragedy, until Lawson remarked that the balance of power now rested where it belonged. Following the death of Benson, we had been 9 and 9 Germans and 9 allies, as we called ourselves. Now there were but 8 Germans. We never counted the girl on either side, I suppose because she was a girl, though we knew well enough that she was ours. And so Olsen's remark helped to clear the atmosphere for the allies at least, and our attention was once more directed toward the river, for round us there had sprung up a perfect bedlam of screams and hisses, and a seething cauldron of hideous reptiles. The fire of fear and filled only with hunger and with rage, they clambered, squirmed and wriggled to the deck, forcing us steadily backward, though we emptied our pistols into them. There were all sorts and conditions of horrible things, huge, hideous, grotesque, monstrous, a veritable Messianic nightmare. I saw that the girl was gotten below as quickly as possible, and she took Nobbs with her. Poor Nobbs had nearly barked his head off, and I think too that for the first time since his little puppyhood he had known fear, nor can I blame him. After the girl I sent Bradley and most of the allies, and then the Germans who were on deck, von Schoenvoorts being still in irons below. The creatures were approaching perilously, close before I dropped through the hatchway and slammed down a cover. Then I went into the tower and ordered full speed ahead, hoping to distance the fearsome things, but it was useless. Not only could any of them easily outdistance the U-33, but the further upstream we progressed, the greater the number of our besiegers, until fearful navigating a strange river at high speed, I gave orders to reduce and move slowly and majestically through the plugging, hissing mess. I was mighty glad that our entrance into the interior of Caprona had been inside a submarine rather than in any other form of vessel. I could readily understand how it might have been that Caprona had been invaded in the past by some venture, some navigators, without word of it ever reaching the outside world. For I can assure you that only by submarine could men pass on that great sluggish river, alive at least. We proceeded up the river for some 40 miles before darkness overtook us. I was afraid to submerge and lie on the bottom overnight, for fear that the mud might be deep enough to hold us. And as we could not hold with the anchor, I ran in close to shore, and in a brief interim of attack from the reptiles, we made fast to a large tree. We also dipped up some river. Some of the river water we found, though quite warm, a little sweeter than before. We had food enough, and with the water we were all quite refreshed. But we missed fresh meat. It had been weeks now since we had tasted it, and the sight of the reptiles gave me an idea that a steak or two from one of them might not be bad eating. So I went on deck with a rifle, 20 of which were aboard of the U-33. At sight of me a huge thing charged and climbed the deck. I retreated to the top of the conning tower, and when it raised its mighty bulk to the level of the deck on which I stood, I let it have a bullet right between the eyes. The thing stopped then and looked at me a moment, had much to say. Why the sting is a stinger, I must be careful. And then it reached out its long neck and opened its mighty jaws and grabbed for me. But I wasn't there, I had tumbled backward into the tower. And I mighty near killed myself doing it. When I glanced up, that little hair on the end of its long neck was coming straight down on top of me. And once more I tumbled into greater safety, sprawling upon the floor of the central. Olsen was looking up, and seeing what was poking about in the tower, ran for an axe, nor did he hesitate a moment when he returned with one, but sprang up the ladder and commenced chopping away at the hideous face. The thing didn't have sufficient brain pan to entertain more than a single idea at once, though chopped and hacked and with a bullet hole between its eyes. It still persisted madly in its attempt to get inside the tower and devour Olsen. Though its body was many times the diameter of the hatch, nor did it cease its effort until after Olsen had succeeded in decapitating it. Then the two men went on deck through the main hatch, and while one kept watch, the other cut the hind quarter of Plesiosaurus lawsoni, as Bradley dubbed the thing. Meantime Olsen cut off the long neck, saying that it would make a fine, just fine soup. By the time we had cleared away the blood and the refuse in the towers, the cook had juicy steaks and the steaming broth upon the electric stove, and the aroma rising from peels and eye filled us, all with hitherto unfelt admiration for him and all his kind. All right, put that little chapter of Ramel arriving at the land that time forgot. I'll actually have to keep the further stuff of the land that time forgot for later stream. Because my energy is kind of fading. And with the likes, I should get some food and maybe start worrying about dinner. So, that'll be about all for today. 4 chapters done in about quite a bit less than 4 hours. I think more 3.5 hours. But this whole book was set to clock in at 6 hours and 48 minutes. And I mean, yeah, I know it means the other books as well. I was gonna say it has 3 parts, but it includes the other parts as well. Part 1 still has 6 more chapters to it. And then there's part 3 with 7 chapters as well, and part 2 with 7 chapters, and part 3 with 5. So just looking at that, I'm way behind on the reading time that I think it might take me. So I'll see where I can get tomorrow. I at least want to finish part 1. And then maybe if I can sprinkle some of part 2 in next week. But I want to chill a bit next week as well, since I'll be pulling a long stream. Again, that Sunday after, for Valentine's Day. I'll be trying to finish Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which on this site and according to this site clocks in at 7 hours and 27 minutes when reading normally. But I don't know, I don't think I'll be able to actually finish it because I clock in quite slower than that. Yeah, a long stream on Valentine's Day. And maybe a decently long stream again tomorrow as well, but then more 6 hours-ish. Probably not much longer than that. Well, relax a bit on my weekend as well. Need some chill time. I hope it will be. I hope it will be a great stream. Surely hope so. I don't know. That's all I can really do is hope, I think. Not that much else I can do on it. But right, let me take a look through the ASMR category. And see you all is life. Right, Rory went live a bit ago. Read something. So yeah, so this is life. Bobby is life. Well, maybe just as a thanks for coming by earlier. Maybe great, Bobby. And hello, Anita. Thank you for the follow. I'm sorry to say I'm just about ending. Thank you for coming by. Oh well, thank you. Glad you enjoyed. But I won't have to worry about dinner in a bit, so let me set up a raid. Yeah, I'm basically done for today. So I'm not anywhere near done with the book though, so we'll resume again tomorrow. But alright. Thank you all for having been here and for lurking, but and just for being great people in general. I hope you all have a great weekend and enjoy Bobiro's stream as well. Give her some love from me. And maybe see you all there. Take care all. See you all later. Until then.